We should have more meetings.
I think we should. We don't have... I don't get invited to any, do you?
I've never been invited. No, every now and again we go for a chinwag with the boss. That's how it works.
Blue and grey. It's an interesting combo today.
Blue and grey, yeah.
Looking very swag. You are fast becoming a sort of sex symbol in this building.
Fast becoming? I thought I was about to retire from that role.
I didn't realise that you got me yesterday by asking about Alex Phillips. Well done, everybody was taking the mickey when I walked in today. Yes.
Love it.
Yes.
It's going to be a busy show.
Busy show. And is our king gone woke? The Royal Navy wanted to change the name of that submarine to Asia Magic, or apparently it came from His Majesty.
Not a chance.
Yes, I hate the French. Upset them every day.
Jeremy, after the news at 4.
That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon to you. Just gone 4 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Wednesday, the 29th of January. This is Talk, of course, the home of free speech and common sense. And JK on drive until 7 o'clock. Thank you to Ian Collins. Housewives' choice, proving that grey and blue don't go together. He's back tomorrow afternoon from 1. What a day. Let's lay it out for you. This show is about you. It's about your calls, your input, your involvement. As ever, 3 ways of contacting us. The gorgeous Jodie, fresh from another night out with Cameron, who still won't ask you to get married. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. Ryan, lanky one, slightly miserable yesterday. I'm not telling you why. He likes a voice note. You can do that on WhatsApp. Same number, 0344 499 1000. And your text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. We've got Harry Potter on the buttons. That'll be fun. Listen, in terms of what we've got for you, where do we start? We only need to talk about one story. Rachel Reeves stood up today and basically said, we are going... I don't know why I do that voice every time, her or Starmer. We are going to create growth. We are going to make this country what it needs to be. We're going to create a Silicon Valley between Oxford and Cambridge. But most of all, she said, I back a third runway at Heathrow. She and Keir Starmer are saying that is needed to create growth and business in and out of this country. And immediately you can see the Labour Party in turmoil. Ed Miliband, banned nowhere to be seen. The net zero secretary, nowhere to be seen. A man who was brave enough last week to say to Donald Trump, you've got to doing it again. You've got to understand one thing, President Trump. This unstoppable force of net zero is unstoppable. To which Trump went, I stopped it 10 minutes ago by just pulling out the financial thing at Paris. He's gone runabout, and then Sir Sadiq, the man who cares that much about the environment, says, I will signal complete resistance. It will be noisy, there will be pollution, and our climate charge targets will not be met. So you've got Sadiq Khan and Ed Miliband on one side, you've got Starmer and Reeves. Bear in mind, most of business doesn't trust this Chancellor after what she's done to small businesses. You've got Starmer jumping up and down going, I'm going to invoke the spirit of Margaret Thatcher. How are you going to do that then? Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to get rid of red tape. I'm going to instigate an opinion poll, and then I'm going to have a quango and a committee to talk about it. They are full of rubbish. What do you make of it? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. You might have heard us tell that story earlier in the week as well. I find this shocking. The Royal Navy was labelled woke for wanting to rename what was to be called their new attack submarine, HMS Agincourt. But apparently they wanted to rename it HMS Achilles. Yeah, I know, don't even go there. Because that might upset the French. Now, I'm absolutely honest enough to admit that my daily life would be spent wanting to upset the French. Can't bear them. But apparently the King was involved, and he was very keen to say, I didn't want this happening. I mean, the French are lovely people. It's a voice, another voice, crap. What do you make of that? The woke King and Brits are talking about bringing back the death penalty. I've talked about this in great detail. It's one of those emotive subjects. People will be on whatever side they're at. We'd love to know what you think about it. Do you think that this death penalty push is the answer for this country? Are you in the camp of people who say you lower yourself to people's level if you do that, there will be injustices? Or are you a bit like me when you think of Sarah Sharif's father, who will spend 40 years in jail, or that disgusting Axel Rudabikana who stabbed those 3 innocent girls to death? Are we really supposed to spend whatever we spend every year for them to be in solitary, or would they be better off not on this planet? Thoughts, please. 0344 499 1000. I am delighted. You know, I go through a whole week, I have great guests, but only occasionally do we get top-quality guests. Unfortunately, Nigel Farage was busy, so I say I'm joking. A very good afternoon to a svelte-like Harry Cole, the chief political editor of The Sun. How are you?
Oh, very well, Jerry. How are you?
What's going on? The makeover is taking shape, Coley.
TV, darling.
Has it changed
it's the
you?
future, yeah.
Has it changed
no
you?
one was a fat bloke on telly, right?
Well, do you know the first day I arrived in America quickly? This is a true story.
Yeah.
I felt quite good many years ago. I walked down 56th Avenue. I saw this 100-foot poster, the Jeremy Kyle Show in the United States, and I walked in, and this slightly camp director went, oh, no. I can't work with this. This is no good. There's more lines on his face than the London Underground. And I had to do the same. So we all sell our soul, don't we?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Listen, I know you were joined by the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, on
Very
Never
silky
Mind
man.
the
Very,
Ballots, trying to defend his boss. Let's just have a listen and a watch before we bring Harry in, my friends.
You've increased taxes, you've pushed borrowings to the absolute limit, you've destroyed business confidence, you killed growth. This is all panic, isn't it? This is a good case to sack the Chancellor.
Oh, complete rubbish. Come on, look, you saw today a strong Chancellor in control of the agenda for this country.
Really? Or a panicking Chancellor pivoting and trying to U-turn?
Panicking. You're creating a fiction, Harry.
Would you like the job if she...
It was a great speech today, setting out this government's agenda, why the plan for change is working, the plan for change that the British people voted for, with a historic landslide for a Labour government. We're getting on with the job of the change that we promised in delivering, and that is a great thing for the country.
What a great set of questions. It's true, though, isn't it? Because there is this sort of... Can I just say that both that interview, Never Mind the Ballots, of course, on our YouTube channel here at Talk, and also on The Sun's YouTube channel, it's so worth a watch. The thing about that, holding politicians to account, for me becomes more and more important on a daily basis, because I think that the British public are fed up. They want transparency. I think they know that what's happening, and has happened in the last 8 months, is nothing that we were led to believe would happen in the manifesto.
That's the fundamental problem, the contradiction at the heart of this government, is what they said to get elected and what they've done since.
Yeah.
And this is another classic example of which Rachel Reeves do we believe? Which one are we meant to say? The Rachel Reeves that came in and said everything's doom and gloom and the country's going down the Swanee and it's irrevocably broken by the Tories and there's no money for anything, and then maxes out borrowing at the budget, increases spending, increases taxes, lots of taxes she said she wasn't going to do, and now it's all fixed smiles, singing, all dancing. Britain's brilliant, we've got potential. Well, so why did you say all that at the beginning? And you might not have actually started 2024 as a country with the fastest growth in the G7 and ended 2024 basically like one of those, like heart monitors, completely flatlining. Beep.
It's true.
And look at the numbers. Every time they're getting revised down. Growth has basically stalled in this country, and a lot of that blame has to be laid at the door of the people that came in power in July and talked down Britain. And they talked down Britain relentlessly. We know what they were doing. They were trying to poison the well forever. They were trying to trash the Tory brand once more. Look, Tories put themselves...
I think the brand trashed itself.
Exactly. The Tories put themselves in the ground without having to be,
you would have wanted it. You would have wanted them to come out first and go, right, listen, this is where we're at and it's not great, right? But we're going to do this, and this. They didn't. And actually, you're right. For the first few weeks and months we're dealing... I'm doing it again. 14 years of Tory decline. And you're right, they have raised taxes. Last week or maybe earlier this week, 7 councils, despite his... I played a clip today on another show where he said, we will not raise council tax. 7 councils will raise it by 25%. 5 million people will be paying 5 times over the legal limit this year or next year. Fundamentally wrong. We know what's happened to pensioners. We know what's happened to farmers. We know these...
Employers.
Small businesses screwed because there's growth. That's ruining it.
Small business, not just small business.
No.
Obviously that's important. Actual, big firms in this country that employ lots and lots and lots and lots of people are now laying them off. Tesco's today, Sainsbury's last week. Who's going to be next? And the problem is, and Darren Jones actually admitted it, I think kind of for the first time, he said, look, yeah, there is going to be pain. This is painful. And then you get to the contradiction again. It's like, right, if that's hurting business and hurting employers and stopping people getting jobs, some readers, going to get laid off because of these decisions being made by this government, don't then tell us that everything, that we're going full gangbusters for growth, because you're either doing this or you're not. And then the other one is...
There's no plan, Harry. There was never consistency in their argument.
And you've got this Angela Rayner's great big sweeping workers' rights packages that's going to come in, all led by the trade unions, that's going to make it much harder for businesses to sort of hire and sort of be nimble. And they know that's going to hurt growth as well. So he's saying, Starmer and Reeves are saying, look, well, every single government decision is going to be seen through the prism of, will this help growth? Except for all the decisions they've made so far.
That haven't.
Yeah, exactly.
and that is it. And actually, I said to Ian, you could very, very easily say civil war is on the cards. We can, when we were talking during the election campaign, I think most of us who know a thing or two would have said, but we weren't allowed to. This is socialism, and what will happen is you will either get tax rises and increases given to every union who wants to jump up and down, because that's the truth. They will do nothing about immigration, and they will look around this country to screw people who they feel can pay for their mates to get pay rises. What I find astonishing is, even now, today, put your answer to this, though. Ed Miliband goes on and on about this net zero tripe. You might have a different view. For me, the tractor tax is a land grab of people who have done a brilliant job providing food in this country for years. They'll build their wind farms, which they know will not create enough electricity, and then they'll import it from somewhere else, and our bills will go up, right? That's the reality. But Ed Miliband, no, it's all about targets. Nowhere to be seen today when Reeves said we're building a third runway. Starmer and Reeves on one side. Miliband presumably wants to keep the job, so won't say anything. But Sadiq Khan already out saying, I'm going to oppose it. They are in meltdown because there was no plan.
I think, look, there's no consistency, I think it is. That's the thing. Yes, they were the plan, they've sort of boxed themselves in with their plan.
Yeah,
they were so worried about, getting over the line, which eventually they did. They were going to win that election anyway.
I think they could have said nothing.
Exactly. And they've sort of boxed themselves in. They talk a very good game. I like all the things that a lot of the things that Rachel Reeves said today. Brilliant. But is it credible that the same people that are now saying we're going to be the next Margaret Thatcher, we're going to be the next, who was the great Big Bang Chancellor, Nigel Lawson, we're going to be the deregulators? Does anyone believe these two technocratic, very straight-laced politicians
Deregulators?
are really going to deregulate at the same time as they're throwing a load more red tape on it?
And that was what he said. He said, I'm going to inspire...
And at the same time, sorry, to interrupt you, the maestro, at the same time, all we're hearing is they're going to take us closer back to Europe, and the price of that is going to be more alignment on the very red tape, which we left the EU, which we were meant to avoid. So,
and we know, you and I know, people listening to this station, that the talk loyal listeners know that whenever Labour have to face a problem, this would be my opinion. I don't know what. Let me know what you think, guys. There's a quango or a committee or a brainstorming session, and he says, I'm going to invoke Margaret Thatcher's spirit. Thatcher said, you can buy your council house, I want to make businesses successful, I want you to go and make your life successful. This government wants to control every aspect.
It's the two hands. One hand is saying we need, Rachel Reeves rightly saying the planning blob, the regulatory blob is too complicated, too inaccessible, and it's crippling business. At the same time, Labour, in the 5, 6, 7 months since they've been in power, how many is it? 38 different reviews they've set up now. They can't do it. Look at Donald Trump. He came in, he went bang, 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 bang. Here's what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it.
Did he tell you about the golf story? Did you hear that?
I did hear that.
And that's true.
Yeah, and you know, quick fire. Yes, he did have 3 months transition to prepare for it all and fine. But Labour had years to prepare for what they were.
They knew they were going to win.
Exactly. From ever since Boris Johnson basically was given the heave-ho, it was pretty obvious the direction of travel the Tory party were going in. So they had years to do it. There was no plan. They got rid of Sue Gray because she was apparently the one meant to be planning the first 100 days. And, you know, Kemi Badenoch in the House, I think she's had a good couple of weeks in PMQs, actually, because she's worked out that Starmer's not on top of the detail. He didn't know about his school stuff last week, and he didn't. Well, he sort of blustered a little bit today on this workers' rights stuff. At the same time, he's just saying let's bonfire of the quangos and bonfire of the regulations. You'd like to legislate for a whole new slew of regulations and quangos and bodies. And actually, if she can start to actually hammer that consistently and regularly, she might be onto something.
I find it astonishing. I mean, you know, Rachel Reeves also today saying, I'm not ruling out tax hikes. You just... And I think this is a true point for what I call ordinary everyday people, not political nerds, not people that report on it or do shows like this, but everyday people who just pay their bills and want their best. And I think people are actually more switched on, more willing to criticise, more fed up. That's what I think people are talking about migration far more, because they're just looking at their own lives and they're looking at a government that seems to lack, as you quite rightly said, purpose and direction, and that contradicts itself.
Yeah, and I think the big three issues they're sort of not really talking about or talking around. Immigration, obviously. Yes, today, exactly. Rachel Reeves said, oh, you know, we're going to do everything we can to lower net migration. But what we're also going to do is extend the amount of visas for high-skilled people to come into this country. Right, another contradiction. Then you've got the benefits bill. Darren Jones on my show said, yeah, I've got the balls to cut the benefits bill. I've got the political will, I've got the political capital. We've got to do it. Believe that when I see it. There will be howls from the Labour MPs, from the BBC, from the Guardian, from all the charity sector. Everyone who's basically been wanging on about austerity for the last 20 years are all going to come back and say, look, Labour, can they really do it? I'm not sure. And then the NHS, again, talked a great game. Talked a fantastic game on the NHS. We're the only people that can reform the NHS. You know, any criticism, anyone else that ever went near the NHS, Labour accused them of wanting to privatise it and sell it to Donald Trump or whatever. And we all said, fine, all right, Nixon in China it is then. If you are the only ones that can fix the NHS, crack on. We won't stop you. Please do it. Where have we got to now?
Stopping the boats, Harry Cole. Nothing.
Exactly.
Words.
All very good words. And today in Parliament, guess what happened? The NHS top brass were there in the, they weren't wearing their medals, but they were wearing their sort of, their sort of beige suits. And there they all came out and they said, what did they say? Oh, the uplift we had, that 10 billion you gave us the budget. Oh, by the way, it's already gone. We might need some more. And it will just keep happening and keep happening and keep happening until someone gets a grip of it. And the big three issues, they're kind of just pushing down the line.
Do you think he's up to this job, Starmer? Serious question. You follow politics a lot longer than me. Do you think that we can talk about plans, we can talk about contradictions? It just doesn't. I'm not even talking on a personal level. To me, there's no gravitas. When he speaks, there's no conviction. I can't follow a man that I don't believe in.
I think it would be fatal to underestimate him, given where he is, given the size of his majority, and Rachel Reeves as well. I think there's some still there. And look, they've had a better January than they had a December, November, October. Something has happened since Christmas where they've got a bit of fight back in them. They were sort of all over the shop a little bit. At least they are now realising it. And the article that Keir Starmer wrote in the Times this morning, and plus Rachel Reeves' speech this afternoon or this morning, whatever it was, the two of those things together is actually both number 10 and number 11 are now realising that they probably did almost talk Britain into a recession. They probably overcooked it a little bit too much, and they've got to do something right. If they can do this stuff, let's do it. fine, but it's not easy. It would have been done a long time ago if it was. And then kind of the mistake they're making, and this is where I think they could be in trouble, is they think just a speech will fix it and an op-ed in the Times will fix it. They think, right, we've now won the argument on growth and planning. They haven't. The argument is only just beginning, and it's going to be, as you said, the title up at the bow to the top of your show, is going to be this is going to be a Labour war, and it's going to be Labour MPs who are opposing this stuff. It's going to be Labour mayors. It's not just in London. All of these mayors, they've outsourced all of local opposition to elected people who are elected in local areas who are going to be right. Well, you know what? Yeah, we're all for growth, but I don't want pylons. I don't want concrete. Absolutely. I don't want a reservoir flooding my quarter of my constituency. And so the fight begins today. It's not. I'm glad the Chancellor and the Prime Minister have got there, but they don't be resting on their laurels just yet.
Listen, you look amazing. Where are you off to? You used to, if we finish this, you'd usually go to the pub. You're going off to the gym again,
I'm
aren't
going to
you?
go play squash.
Good man. He looks great. Harry Cole, the new haircut, the new attitude, everything's good. Great to have you on the show. Listen, as I said, don't forget, never mind the ballots. You can get it on our YouTube channel, talkTV. Of course, you can also get it on The Sun. Fantastic. Don't miss it. Harry, thank you very much indeed. 4:20. We are live across the UK. JK on Drive on Talk. It is the home of free speech and common sense. We want to hear from you. What do you make of the Labour Party? Civil war on the horizon, possibly. 0344 499 1000. Back in 3.
When we win the next general election...
When you say?
Not just... Yeah, well, look, if you look at where we're headed in the polls, Julia, we've got an enormous amount to do, clearly. We have an enormous amount to do. But we can see the trend and direction in this country is that British people are waking up. They're waking up and appreciating the optimistic message that Nigel and our MPs are offering them. And that's why we've gone from 14% support in the general election just 7 months ago to polling average of the polls at 25%. So, yes, we have an enormous amount to do. We don't take anything for granted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
back. No, isn't it? It's Wednesday afternoon, 4:23. This is JK on Drive. Thanks for tuning in. Loads of you texting 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Bill, good afternoon. Mad Miliband won't resign because he has at least another 4 years to ruin us. And did you know that the new third runway will be for hot air balloons? I didn't know that. Barry in Spain. He's had enough. He's buggered off to Spain already. We must get rid of this government before they destroy my country. Unfortunately, the only thing left is a general strike. That could be outspoken. Brad, good afternoon. In Cambridge, in the news because Rachel Reeves wants to build a sort of Silicon Valley type corridor between Oxford and Cambridge, 66 miles between the two cities. She says that is what growing the economy is about. He says the Tories have actually been working on the highway between Oxford and Cambridge for years. She's just trying to steal the glory to distract from the mess that her budget created. That's very interesting. Christina, she wants to talk about the death penalty. Loads of people wanting to talk about the death penalty. Christina, remembering Lee Rigby, of course, was violently murdered in broad daylight. Darren and Congersbury, if they bring back the death penalty, they'll be killing people off for sending tweets. They probably would under this government. Hello to Simon in Reading, not where I was born. Do you think that Starmer, this is true, Starmer today evoking the spirit of Margaret Thatcher. We need to get rid of red tape to make this country work. But this is a man, as Simon says, who took down the picture of Margaret Thatcher the minute he arrived in Downing Street because he thought she was appalling. Do you think he's now put it back up, says Simon, and is singing and dancing around his idol? There is undoubted trouble afoot for the Labour government, and nobody better to speak to it about than the legend that is Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. We went viral online for our last interview. Do you know that?
How are we going to repeat that, Jeremy? Have you got some ideas?
No, I spoke to a couple and they said you knew exactly what you were saying. I certainly didn't. I stand that's absolutely outrageous. Anyway, Ms. Oakeshott, I think, I don't know what you think, you'll probably be more outspoken. I think that when Reeves stood up and did her, Richard III, as I call her, did her speech today about the third runway, which she and Starmer have obviously worked out is a necessity, I think that it will show and is beginning to show irreparable splits within the Labour Party. David Miliband, Ed Miliband, I should say, who you would think would be involved, Energy Secretary, Net Zero, nowhere to be seen. Sadiq Khan already has come out and said, I will resist this with all of my might. It will create air pollution, noise, and will not allow us to meet our climate change targets. They're in a pickle, aren't they, Isabel?
This is now reminding me, it's like Groundhog Day. I mean, how many years ago was it that Boris was saying that he was going to actually lie down on the tarmac in front of any diggers or anything that was going to create a third runway? Do you remember that? I mean, that was literally like, I think it was sort of about 2011 or 12.
I think it was. Yeah, it was about 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, absolutely.
Slowly things happen in our country. I think the whole third runway thing is only really interesting because of the rows that it's going to create and is already creating, and that is great entertainment for us. Is it interesting in terms of what it can do for our economy? Absolutely not. Look, Rachel Reeves today admitted that she was quite shocked by how crap planning policy is in our country. And I don't really know how she can be shocked. It just shows just how limited her circle of friends is, because if she'd ever tried to submit a planning application herself, she would know just how hopeless the whole system is. But nonetheless, that seems to have taken her by surprise. So if you can't even get permission to put an extra window in your house or build an extension, can you imagine what hope there's going to be?
Well, I said to Ian, you're in Dubai, right? I know, because I've been there lots. Abu Dhabi, they guaranteed some years ago to build this racing track at the Yas Marina. That's what they called it, over in Abu Dhabi, 80 miles from where you are. And this is the difference between the country that you're in and the country that we're in. And planning is so central. They said we'll do it in 3 years. They built the most modern, up-to-date. It's extraordinary. The Yas Marina in Abu Dhabi is world-class, right? You watch the racing through glass. It's extraordinary. This would take the third runway, they reckon, 7 or 8 years to get through the planning stage. And today we have ridiculous scenario of Starmer saying, I'm going to evoke Margaret Thatcher. I'm going to break down red tape. This man loves a bloody committee and a quanker. This is just words. And I really think that the British people are fed up with words, Isabel. I think they can see through this stuff now. And I think all politicians need to take note, because I think people are just seriously fed up to the back teeth. I mean, in the same speech as she talked about growth, she said, I can't rule out more tax rises in the spring budget. That's because you messed up with your budget last time, love.
Well, there are a bunch of other growth killers that she included in that speech. I mean, she said casually that she wants to actually increase immigration from certain categories of high-skilled individual. Well, we're all in. I think pretty much everybody is in favour of very, very specific high-skilled immigration. Any sensible country, any growing country wants to have the brightest and best. The problem is, at this point, nobody trusts their approach to immigration, and we've already got a come one, come all policy. So why does she feel the need to say, actually, we want some extra people? No doubt all of them will be bringing all sorts of relatives.
Can I just say thank you, because you have literally managed to alight on something that annoys me more than anything. Why do the bedwetters, Isabel, why do all the lefties, all of those people always make us think or try to convince us that every single migrant is a highly skilled physician or whatever, a scientist or chemist or something that's going to bring great things to this country? No, they're not. Those people talk about the criminals. They never talk about the people who arrive here, throw their papers away and disappear into society. It's an absolute travesty to sell migration as, oh, it's just about skilled workers. Of course we want skilled workers, but we also want to get the people that come to this country for no reason but to screw it out. And Harry Cole was right just now. He was saying, you know, they said something during the election, but they didn't have to say a lot. They've lied on tax. They've lied about the heating allowance. They're screwing farmers. It is, to me, there can't be a plan. Today he invokes Thatcher. When he got there, he removed the picture because she was a scourge on society, apparently. What do they actually think? What do they mean? There's no conviction and no plan. And I think it can only be a horror 4 years. Sorry to be on a downer. It's how I feel.
Let's just step back for a minute and also note just how unusual it is for a chancellor to give what was almost an hour-long speech and then take questions not only a few months after her supposed once-in-a-generation budget. This is desperate stuff. I can't actually think of it ever happening before. A chancellor, not in my time as a political reporter, which is far too long, a chancellor having to deliver effectively a whole other budget-style speech. She is seriously on the back foot. And while some of what she announced today sounds good, I mean, she had to go at the absolutely crazy bat tunnel that we spent 100 million of taxpayers' money on, and she talked about, you know, not being held back by the greater crested newt. Unfortunately, all of what she's announced is undermined fundamentally by the things she's doing to kill growth, which is these sky-high taxes. You know, employers are leaving, investors are leaving, wealth creators are leaving. And these raft of new workers' rights, which is absolute poison to growth, you know, billions of pounds worth of extra rights for workers is only going to put companies off employing more people.
And I think you're right, because you've got a government, I think, that spouts growth and doesn't know how to do it. You've got a certain wing of the party who are desperate to implement every green target known to man, which suddenly those on the right, like Starmer and Reeves, have gone, that's not going to be possible financially. The third runway, very quickly, are you a supporter of a third runway, yes or no?
Not really. I just don't think that it's where we need the growth. You know, there's already 7 runways in London.
Yeah.
Many would argue that actually, if you're going to create extra airport capacity, do it in the regions. And as for this Oxford-Cambridge corridor, Oxford and Cambridge are 2 of the wealthiest towns and cities in the UK. This is not the area that actually needs a massive injection of extra government subsidies. We've actually got to push growth all the way up through the country, not focusing on places.
Imagine a politician. I mean, you listen, absolutely spot on again. It's all about the M2. Couple of voice notes for us to listen to about the third runway. Rich in Southport, go.
Just worked out why they want the third runway at Heathrow and they want all them other runways around the country. Labour want to import more people, mate. Great show.
Isabel, interesting.
Well, I'll tell you what would make me in favour of a third runway if it was exclusively used to deport illegal immigrants and foreign criminals. In that case, I'm well up for a third runway. Let's have a special dedicated runway for deportations.
I said to Ian, I must just do this with you as well because it was just fantastic. There was some footage of Trump this week. He had a bit of kickback, didn't he, from the Colombian president who said, no, you can't send Colombian criminals shackled home. I'm not having them. And he was on the 6th hole. If you can catch this online, it's brilliant. Playing golf with Durant. He took the call from the White House. By the 8th hole, people, which is about 25 minutes later, he'd already instigated a 25% tariff against Colombia and said if you don't do it within a week, it'll be 50%, and the guy dropped it. You wouldn't have that here. Tony's in Bradford. Go.
Look, this third runway will never be built with Commie Starmer running the country, pushing this green, stupid agenda down our throats, you know, like green crisis, climate crisis. It's all rubbish. It's just another way to make money. And I tell you why it won't be pushed. You've got like Sadiq Khan. Oh, it's going to cause pollution. Well, yeah, look at the underground. You need a bloody gas mask to get on them trains.
Brilliant. I mean, these are genuine people. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to London with Isabel. Ian, you're on Talk Drive. What you got?
Right, Jeremy. How much did Wembley Stadium cost to build? What was it supposed to have been? What was it the cost of initially? It was 100 million.
Yeah.
It ended up at 800 million because every time they do anything, you've got to have 15,000 committees just to pick up a paperclip.
Well, don't worry, because Keir Starmer's going to get rid of red tape. He's invoked the spirit of Margaret Thatcher.
No, this is all smoke and mirrors. Let's do about a runway so everything else that's going on in the country suddenly gets pushed aside. All the business, as Isabel will know, all the business with immigration, all the business with the NHS, all the business with like everything else. Everything is all suddenly been hidden because we're all talking about a runway that will never, ever get built.
Very interesting point. And in fact, that's really interesting, isn't it? And somebody, Isabel, in the midst of that, texted in and said, Starmer invoked Thatcher today. Does that mean he'll have the balls to take on the unions? Isabel Oakeshott, good points, I have to say.
Absolutely zero chance whatsoever. And actually, Michael O'Leary, a boss of Ryanair, gave a cracking and absolutely eviscerating press conference today in which he was very plain speaking about this third runway thing, calling it a dead cat policy. He made the point that if the government actually wanted to boost aviation, the single easiest and quickest thing they could do would be to ditch the air passenger duty. It doesn't raise a lot, but it really adds a lot to the cost of holidays. And, you know, that would be a quick boost and a quick injection instead of talking about something that, frankly, we all know is never going to get off the ground, certainly not long.
See what you've done there off the ground. See, that'll go viral. You did it, didn't you? You wrote that, didn't you?
I really, you know what? Unlike Keir Starmer, these things just come into my head.
I know Michael O'Leary from horse racing. He called her Rachel Rubbish. I think we might go. We've had Rachel Thieves. We've had Richard III, and we all know what Richard III is. Maybe she should be flushed down a bog somewhere. But on a serious note, there's a lot of people that can't understand. Just to sum up with you, there seems, as Harry Cole said, Isabel, to be sort of different parts. We want growth. Well, we're going to tax businesses, small and big, who are losing money hand over fist. Workers' rights will bring in to protect people, but that's going to make businesses not able to make money. We're going to allow lots of migrants to come in, which is going to overstretch our public services and destroy the crap infrastructure we've got anyway. I genuinely believe they ain't got a plan. What about you?
I think they're in an absolute panic because they know that the economy is heading for the buffers. You know, we're already bumping along the bottom. If it goes into recession, she's really in trouble and she knows that. And this was an extraordinary intervention today. It doesn't really add up to a row of beans. I did think she performed quite well. She sounded confident, but none of it is going to amount to anything unless there is actual movement in those figures in the direction that she needs there to be. And when you talk to the economists, you talk to the experts, most of them are very, very gloomy about the prospect of that.
Really appreciate you coming on. Always do. We love it. Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. What do you make of that, my friends? Labour on the verge of civil war, potentially over Heathrow. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. You can send a voice note. Ryan's happy. He's had 2 already. You can send a text, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. This is Talk Drive.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Tomorrow morning from 6, the legend that is Mike Graham with Morning Glory, followed by Julia Hartley-Brewer from 10, Ian Collins from 1 o'clock. If you want to be part of this vain attempt at a drive show, with me, Jeremy Carl, until 7, 0344 499 1000. Our Judy is taking the calls, and Ryan is very, very happy. Another voice note, 3 and 40 minutes, Ryan, you're so popular. Simon on the UK's Silicon Valley. Simon, shoot.
You know, when Reeves turned around and said she's going to be building this Silicon Valley between Oxford and Cambridge, all well and good, but straight away she couldn't help herself. She turned around and says, and we're going to import the best and the brightest to work there. It's like, how demoralising for the British people. Get the British people to work in those sort of jobs. How demoralising to think that we've got to import people. We don't need to import people to do those jobs. The brightest and the best are here already. They're called British. Thanks, mate. Rant over. Ta-ra.
Nice. Now, Simon, of course, under Labour's new rules, would be deemed a misogynistic, sexist, homophobic, racist bigot, probably, for that hour. Let's go to the phone lines in West Yorkshire. Why have I done that? Barry, how are you, lad?
Hello, and I'm a Geordie who lives in North Yorkshire.
Why are you... hold on a minute, rewind. Why are you a Geordie in West Yorkshire? Why? Why aren't you in the Toon?
Well, I'm a Toon supporter. I've got to be. I was born there, and I've been down here 60 years. I'm a missionary in Yorkshire, a Geordie missionary in Yorkshire.
Oh, yeah.
But my dad got on his bike in the 60s and came down here when the pits closed up there. But what I was wanting to say, Jez, is that a more cost-effective solution to a third runway at Heathrow would be to reopen Doncaster-Sheffield Airport, which is right next to the East Coast Main Line.
Yep.
And the country would benefit a lot more from that. They used to be able to land Vulcan bombers there. It's like 2 mile long a runway. You could land anything there, jumbo jets, anything. And then if they wanted to get into London, onto the East Coast line, and not much longer than coming from Heathrow into the centre of London. You know, that's lateral thinking. And another benefit is it's in, I think, Millie Brain's constituency.
Oh, yeah. There'll obviously be some personal interest. For me, I'm very happy for any government to want to create growth. Don't know whether expanding Heathrow would work. I was a big fan when Boris Johnson stood up and talked about levelling up, but unfortunately that just became a phrase, because I'm with you. I'll be off to Newcastle again this weekend. I'll be at St James's Park on Saturday, and every single person, all my friends up in Newcastle say the same. That England is the politicians are still London-centric. Couldn't agree with you more. Baz in West Yorkshire, thank you, my friend. 0344 499 1000. We had her back last week as I resuscitated her career. The Lazarus of I'm joking. Alicia Fitzgerald. See, since you came on with me, you've been on Breakfast with Mike. Everything's taken off. It's not just your boyfriend Simon who looks after you.
My boyfriend Simon.
Is he not called?
He's not called Simon.
What's he called then?
He's called James.
Ah, there. I see. I gave you the opportunity. I said, I'll give him a shout out. He's really nice. I love him.
I didn't say
that. We
that.
don't live together. I'm not that committed, but I love him. You all right?
You're the worst.
You love it though, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Really welcome. Honestly, I really love your perspective and take on this today. So, Rachel Reeves, you would understand the station that we work on. There is real cynicism about. Certainly, if you look at her and Starmer on one side talking about growth, but. To the point where Miliband doesn't turn up, he's in a huff. Obviously, Sadiq Khan says, "Oh, pollution, noise. I'm going to go against it." So there's a split there. But you look at Starmer and Reeves specifically, and they go on about growth. But then they raise taxes in that budget on small businesses. This workers' right law that's being brought in is going to make it almost impossible to employ anybody without them saying, "I'm sorry, I've cut my toenails and I'm feeling anxious about my life and I'm going to sue you." Literally, that's stupid. And Harry Cole was saying earlier, they talk a good fight sometimes, but there doesn't seem any detail, any depth, any conviction or any plan. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think the thing with that speech today was these big announcements. And don't get me wrong, I'm grateful that there actually were some announcements and some policies, because 9 times out of 10 when you get these speeches, it's kind of just a whole lot of waffle and you haven't actually heard what they're going to do. So in that regard, fine, at least there's some plans there. But with things like the Heathrow airport expansion, I mean, that is going to take ages. I mean, even to get that agreed, to get the planning permission agreed, to get all these things agreed, that will take about 4 years. Then actually building it will take, 7, 8, 9 years? I mean, that's going to take us into the 2030s. and who knows who's going to be in power when that time comes around. So, I mean, all of these things, I get that stuff doesn't happen overnight, but it's just this idea of kicking stuff down the line again. I mean, fine, in 10 years we might have some growth as a result of this policy, but, like, we need it now.
But growth, yeah, and you're absolutely right, and we said it earlier, we gave the example of Abu Dhabi and how they built the Yas Marina, the Formula One racetrack, in they said 3 years, and they did it within 1,000 days. That's what they said. In this country, the planning, so you're right, virtue signalling, saying, oh, I think we should build that because it'll help growth, but when you're then raising taxes against small, medium and even larger businesses, which make it impossible for them to continue. We speak to people all the time who are either leaving this country because they're wealthy or successful and they create wealth for other people. No, you've got to go. You're all, we're going to screw you lot. But smaller businesses, and I don't know. I said something during the election campaign that lots of people laughed at. You weren't with me at that point, but genuinely this is true. I said that I think he's invited so many people into his tent to get elected that his big problem afterwards will be trying to placate everybody. And now he's got a position where he might want to build a runway, he might want to lower taxes. You know the tractor tax to screw farmers so he can nick their land and build wind farms. Has he not worked out that? I worked it out the other day, 74 of the seats in the north that his Labour Party won to win that election are rural constituencies. The minute all that stuff starts, the emails that those MPs... I genuinely think that he's in a position where he's promised to his own people too much, to us not enough, and I think the British people are very hacked off with the situation.
I think you made a really good point. Well, you made several really good points, of course. I mean, at the beginning of what you just said, in that I think the rest was crap. Yeah, the rest of it is a lot to be desired. But you started well, and that's what counts.
Right, well that'll go viral, won't it? That's because I'm 60, love. Yeah, go on, crack on. Yeah.
You dish it out, you've got to get it back sometimes.
Apparently,
it's only fair.
Yeah.
So this idea that he's trying to please too many people, I think loads of people thought that was an election-winning tactic. I think loads of people thought he's going to do this before the election so that he wins, which is fair. Loads of parties have done that in history, fine. But then thought that once he was in, it would be more clear kind of what the party stands for, what their priorities are. But it still feels like we're trying to please people on the far left of the political spectrum, and then Tories as well, and it's like that it doesn't match up.
I ended up thinking during the election campaign that Starmer and Sunak, there wasn't much difference, and I took real affront to Reform being called far right because you're far too young, but I was brought up in a Tory household, and the things that Reform, not all of it, but a lot of what Reform was talking about was traditional Tory values. But, you had Boris Johnson advocating net zero. You had all of, and I said it yesterday, and I'd be interested in your opinion on this. Whatever we think about the Labour government, whatever we think about what the Tories have become or what we think about Reform, I think the British public, a few years ago, were like disenfranchised, not interested. I think they're so hacked off. I think they're so off that they work hard, they struggle to pay their bills. They, the ones that never ask for a handout, and then they look at either people coming to this country or criminals being released early or unions. We're apparently 22 billion in a black hole. You can't say black anymore. Do you know that? It's the other day. But we're going to give them a rise. And I think a lot of people are going, hold on a minute, that's not fair, that's not right. And I think politicians of all sides, if they don't start being more transparent, warts and all, they're in big trouble. I really believe that.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. And I also think, just kind of in terms of optics and what Labour are trying to do, something that's a bit confusing, I think, is that you've had a go at the Conservatives for rowing back on net zero, for example. You've said that the climate needs to be a priority. You've then given the go-ahead to a Heathrow runway expansion, which obviously kind of negates everything that they've been saying about net zero because
they promise growth, which is why you promise everything. You can't do it.
Well, this is it. So it's like you can't have both, I don't think.
I think the view's easy from the cheap seats, and I think that Keir Starmer personally is out of his depth. I'm not saying that any of the last two Tory Prime Ministers weren't out of their depth, but I think anybody could have won that election. I think the Tories were that bad and had stopped being listened to by the public, and I do fear. It's so nice to... Will you come every week?
Of course I'll come every week.
Very nice. And James treats you well, yeah? Make sure you do, James, because otherwise I'll visit you in the small house and put a bat up your nightdress. I'm joking.
He's not. You're not joking, are you?
No.
No, you're not.
But he wouldn't be at yours because you're not living together, you're not married. That would be wrong. 10 to 5, this is Talk Drive.
That's the difference with reform. We identify the problem. Yes, it might sound tough. It might sound grim, but then we say, but this is how you solve it. And the way to solve the population crisis is to have net zero immigration and to learn lessons from the new president of the United States, President Trump. And he's going to show us the way over the next couple of years in a variety of different areas, whether it's immigration, whether it's regulation, whether it's scrapping net zero. They're going to be growing like gangbusters. We're all going to be jealous as we head south.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Busy for Wednesday, drive till 7. Jack says working people are far more switched on with politics than they've ever been. I travel the country working in the utilities industry, Jez, and all small talk for the last 6 months has been how people are fearing that Labour are ruining and are going to further ruin this country. A voice note from Sam, go.
So they want to build that runway and it's going to take God knows how long and cost how much. Right. I've just got one word, HS2. Look at the chaos and money pit that is. Is this going to be another one?
Possibly. Thank you. Pat's a new caller in Kent. Pat, welcome to Talk Drive. Couple of minutes. What you got?
Yeah, hi Jeremy, thank you. I'm just saying, if the economy is heading towards the buffers, what the heck are they, are they playing at? Because if there isn't going to be employment and the big people have to lose some of their staff, what about all these people on benefits they want to get off and get them back into work?
I said something yesterday. Pat, I said something yesterday and a lot of people said, yeah, that makes sense. Many other people said, no, that's outrageous. My dealing with the immigration problem would be very, very simple. I am sick to death of hearing about how every single person who comes to this country is a notable physician or can be a doctor or a dentist. No. We need to accept that many people who come to this country are illegal migrants, men who are trying to screw a system that has too many loopholes. So, if you stopped migration, like Trump is, and some people, I mean, Selena Gomez might cry, but there you go. And you said to the people on benefits, not the disabled before they jump up and down, or not the mentally ill. I acknowledge there are people, I absolutely acknowledge there are people that can't work. But there are many people, hundreds of thousands of people in this country who don't work because it's become a completely easy career choice. And I would be saying to them, in return for your benefits, get off your backside and do something to give back to this country. And we would be saving the millions we're paying to illegal migrants to stay in hotels. And we would be saying to those people, get out of bed, put something on your CV, show that you've got something about you and you might be able to do something with your life. And we'll feel we're getting some value for what we're paying these people on a weekly basis. Don't you agree?
Yeah, exactly. But also, surely if you're an illegal immigrant, you can't vote anyway, can you? So why are they wanting them here for votes?
No idea, mate. Listen, it's beyond me. You're a new caller, so are you new to the station?
No, not really.
But the first time you've ever called? First time?
Yeah, I thought I'd have a go.
Can I ask you a question without you being offended? How old are you?
I'm 78.
You sound amazing. I'm going to do a new feature. I keep promising it. Only nans.
Yes, grandma.
Nans that rant, not nans in lingerie. Love you very much indeed. Thank you for coming on. Take care, Pat.
Okay, bye.
Bye, darling. Let's go to Southend. Dave, very quickly. Couple of minutes on Talk Drive. What you got?
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Carr. We don't need a third runway at Heathrow because it's going to be lawyers making money at Starmer's friends. Try and get around the M25 now with 2 runways, and it's almost impossible. What we need is to reschedule the aircraft. From midday onwards, and I've worked at Gatwick.
Have you?
From midday onwards, the amount of flights that come in and out of the airports drop significantly. We have got plenty of capacity from midday onwards for more traffic of aircraft. It's a known fact. So we don't need another runway. How can we get round the M25 now, Mr. Carl? Come on, let's be honest, it's madness.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is, to me, I look at it in a very simple way. I mean, I've got friends who go, we're heading towards, green Armageddon. Really? I loved what Did you see what Donald Trump said this week when he pulled out the Paris Accord? He went, actually, I'm quite happy to say I pulled out the Paris Accord. Wasn't it then 12 years ago said the world would be still over 12 years' time, and we're still here, aren't we? I get concerns. I'm not that stupid. And I know flippantly I'll say that's for the next generation. But I do wish politicians would have the gumption, the balls to go, right now, there's a lot that don't work in this country. There's a lot, the NHS, the social care system, the legal system, and it's just virtue signalling. Ed Miliband, let's lead the world. No, mate, we only release 1% of that crap. Go and get the rest of them to do it. Concentrate on what your constituents genuinely want, because I genuinely feel that the British public are waking up to the fact that most of our politicians just seem to be wasting time and wasting money. Do you know what I mean, Dave?
Well, the problem is, I'll tell you now, they're going to be voted in again because the public are stupid. Everyone's sitting at home, chomping at the bit, saying, but what are we going to do about it? And you can get rid of the government. It is quite easy to get rid of the government. But there you go. We're left with this pile of rubbish, and they will get in again. But
No, they won't get. What are you talking about? They'll get in again. They won't be in for 20 years after what?
They will. Mark my words. The British public have short memories, but
no. I'll tell you why I disagree with you. There are certain moments in politicians' lives. Thatcher, the poll tax. I'm telling you now, when he screwed the pensioners, when he attacked the farmers, these people won't forget. Not in a million years, Dave. They will remember absolutely. Don't you think?
Well, like I said, let's wait 4 years if our country's still here in 4 years. But let's go back to the climate. When I went to school, I was told CO2 fed plant life, trees, etc.
Right.
If we do away with CO2, like Millen idiot, then what are they going to feed on?
Couldn't agree more. Got to go. We're almost at the news. Dave in Southend. Chris in Epsom, you have to wait. 0344 499 1000 is my telephone number. This is Talk Drive. Whatever you want to talk about. On the way, we'll also talk about the death penalty. A majority of Brits want to bring the death penalty back. What do you make of that? 0344 499 1000. Keep those texts coming as well. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. I'm going for a wee. You're getting the news at 5 next.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Thanks for tuning in. JK at the control. Well, I'm not at the controls, let's be honest. Amy is Smiler. 03 I used to be at the controls, but that was... anyway. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Poppy Coburn in a minute, the assistant comment editor of The Telegraph. We're going to move the discussion on. Apparently, a majority of Britons want the death penalty brought back. Love your thoughts on that. And the submarine that can't be named HMS Agincourt because it'll upset the French. Apparently that's come from the King. Christ, the King's gone woke. Hello and good afternoon to my good mate Rob in Newcastle. Way, man. He said you can polish a Richard III, but it will always be a Richard III. I've just had it. Yes, I know you have. Richard III is who I think Rachel Reeves looks like, but that's another story. And yes, Rob, thank you very much indeed. I absolutely know what I said, but I'm just hoping nobody else did. 0344 499 1000. To Epsom we go, my friends. Chris, you're on Talk Drive. A very good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Jez. I'm great. The show's great. I love your interaction with Alicia, but I think James is going to get it in the ear tonight.
Yes, possibly. Crack on.
Right, couple of things. Your last caller was right, and so were you. The farmers and the OAPs and the WASPs will not forget. But the problem is that we in Britain do tend to have a short-term memory. This is a quick one, then I'll go on to the main thing. When they built what was called the arena, all right, which is now the O2, people would forget that Lord Charlie Faulkner, Tony Blair's best mate and room partner at university, sold it for £1 to the Americans on the promise that they would get money back when it became profitable. How much money have we had come back? Because it's the most profitable venue in Europe.
Probably nothing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. OK, Rachel Reeves and Thomas Starmer, they are scrambling. They have not looked at the figures. They know that. I think the boss of Ryanair was right. It's a dead cat. Throwing it on the table. Miliband's not going to be not around because he's going to swallow his pride. He's not going to give up his ministerial perks and his big car. He'll swallow his pride and go along with it. But the thing is, even with this joint between Oxford and Cambridge, okay, the water company that supplies Oxford, okay, I watched a documentary a year ago on them. They are already given permission for, I think it's 2,000 new houses.
Yeah.
They already cannot, they can only cope with 70% of the waste material from those residences, and they're dumping it in the rivers. All right, and there was 1,800, get this, 1,800 outfalls that are not even registered because they have to be registered and be licensed. But it really doesn't matter because the EPA does not check on them anymore.
Do you think, just very briefly, because listen, I'd never be rude, mate, but I've got to crack on. Do you think that Starmer and Reeves have a plan? You used the word scramble, which I would really agree with. I mean, she's going to have a Heathrow expansion. He wants today invoke the spirit of Thatcher. This is having taken a photograph down from number 10 when she got there. Now he's saying, oh, I'm going to do what she did and get rid of red tape. The man's obsessed with red tape and quangos and committees. I don't believe a word they're bloody well saying, do you?
No, I expect he's already busy putting Maggie Thatcher's picture back up in the room he took it down on because he didn't like the look of her. It's absolutely ludicrous. They haven't got a plan. It's all a scramble. They're in an absolute mess.
Couldn't agree more. Chris, I've got to go. You're very kind. Thank you. 6 minutes past 5. 0344 499 1000. Hello to Tobias in Salisbury. No. This third runway is complete nonsense. We never build anything on time and it will never be built. I heard a stat earlier that since 2009, when Gordon Brown promised such, China, ready for this, China have built 136 airports. And we are still in the planning stage for everything because we're crap. I'm delighted to welcome to the show. Honestly, trying to get this woman, she's so busy, so popular, so wonderful. Poppy Coburn, assistant commentator at The Telegraph. A very good afternoon. I'm very honoured to have you on.
Oh, hello. You flatter me as always.
Well, it's good to have you here. I want to start slightly differently because I'm slightly bored of the runway and how crap Starmer is. We can talk about that at the end. Most Britons want to bring back the death penalty, a poll finds. And I know this will really resonate with the viewers and the listeners. Give us a bit of background on this, because I find myself in a really tricky position with this. Really, really tricky. I'll say it to you straight out. I hate injustice. I understand that there have been and will be miscarriages of justice. I also really object to getting out of bed and going to work at nearly 60 so that piece of crap that stabbed his dog, broke 25 of her bones, Sharif, or that disgusting human being, Axel Reddick, who took 3 young angels' lives like that, are going to languish in prison whilst I pay for them to do nothing for the next 50 years. I don't get it. And there's the issue, Poppy, isn't it?
I completely agree. I mean, you know, I'm personally pro the death penalty. I think some of these late terror attacks we've had in recent years have moved more people towards a pro-death penalty position. But to be clear, a lot of people in the UK have always supported the death penalty. It's always polled around that 50% figure. That's been quite common for a very long time. What I think is interesting, though, is that people would make the argument that it was older people who supported the death penalty, that young people didn't support it because, oh, we're all human rights lovers. That's actually not true. If you look at the breakdown of figures, it's actually millennials who are surprisingly very high in their support for the death penalty. And I think the reason for that is when you get older, you start a family, you have kids, you're much more aware of how dangerous this country can be. You can read in the news that we're apparently ruled by a load of judges who are quite happy to let very dangerous criminals out with essentially a slap on the wrist, maybe a couple of years in jail, and you'll be out in half the time for good behaviour. And you start thinking, well, maybe the death penalty is the only way to actually ensure justice for me and my family. But I think the problem as well is that we've got a Prime Minister who built his career on being a human rights lawyer, who does not support the death penalty, has travelled around the world trying to get other countries to get rid of their death penalty. So regardless of the fact the majority of people agree with it, nothing's going to change. Keir Starmer doesn't like it, so of course he's not going to do anything on it.
But is it not? Is it not a free vote, the death penalty, or not? Would it not be that? I know assisted dying was. If they ever brought it in, would it be a free vote, or would he crack the whip, so to speak?
I think he would absolutely crack the whip. And by the way, if you think Labour MPs are going to be voting in favour of the death penalty, I mean, I cannot see that happening. And I'm glad you made the assisted dying comparison. I think if you support assisted dying, you have to be open to the idea of the death penalty. If you're not just saying, well, there could be mistakes, I think life is sacred, I'm not sure I trust authorities to run this, well, the same arguments apply in both cases. So if you're pro-run, I think it makes sense to also be at least open-minded to being pro and the other.
I think what you said about millennials is fascinating, because I think you're absolutely right. I rage when people, you know, this government's refusal to have an inquiry into the rape gangs. You know, parole boards saying it's all right maybe for Gary Glitter to be... I don't even think these people have had a child, let alone met a child. I don't even know what a child is. Because to me, that's all abhorrent as a father of far too many children. That's the reality. But I do think the death penalty will always be... I think you're right as well. I think maybe social media, maybe because so much more is talked about and shown, but some of the things that we now know, I think people find so abhorrent. Maybe they weren't in the public sphere in the past, but I think people now are just saying this is intolerable, really.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, you know, it comes down to essentially, if you don't believe that justice is being served in this country anymore, if you don't necessarily believe that the courts are going to be on the side of victims and people who might be victimised in the future, I think people are going to want to look for a bit of a harder law back a case. So, you know, you're automatically going to get that death penalty option being on the table. So I do think you're probably going to see the figure of British people who support it actually going up in the next couple of years. And I can't really blame them for it. I mean, again, that's my story. I didn't support it younger, and now I'm kind of a bit like, well, I kind of do.
Love to hear your thoughts, people, on that. 0344 499 1000, death penalty, for or against, and why? Poppy, there was an extraordinary story a couple of days ago that we covered on the show and on the station about how the woke Royal Navy was really struggling because they decided that their new attack submarine, you know, which was going to be the highlight of their fleet, because there isn't much of a fleet anymore because it's all finished, but actually they were going to name it HMS Agincourt. This was a very, very important addition to the fleet. Only the Defence Department announced that actually they were not going to name it HMS Agincourt because they were going to rename it HMS Achilles. Yes, we'll wait for the jokes. Just shoot it in the back of the hill. woke nonsense, but the Defence Secretary or the Defence Department have decided that it should be called HMS Achilles for fear of upsetting the French. I've already said at 4 o'clock, and I don't apologise for this. If I was in any position, I would want to upset the bloody French every single day. That would be my favourite pastime. But this apparently was under pressure from His Majesty the King. Now, I am a monarchist by a mile, but really? Really? Don't tell me we've got a woke king. I mean, I know he used to talk to plants, but that will send me over the edge, probably.
Well, I don't want to upset you, but this isn't the first time the king has maybe engaged in a few certain woke behaviours on his part. I mean, I think the worst one was during the Rwanda plan being discussed by the Tory government, when the king somehow gets out in the media, in the Times, that he opposes this plan, which obviously would have come out through a leak. So I think he's pretty clear that there are certain things that are being done that he doesn't agree with. But it's pretty shocking that so many former ministers have come out and said, this is woke, this is appalling, which it is, by the way. Totally agree with that. Probably feeling a bit awkward now the King's just said...
Don't you think there's irony as well
agree.
that HMS Achilles, of course, in Greek mythology, killed Paris, which is funny because you're trying to upset the French. But that's absolutely true. That's genuinely a true... I mean, I find the whole thing ludicrous. Let's talk about what has been centre... I love your thoughts on that, by the way. Is our King woke? Are the Royal Navy woke? Are you worried about upsetting the French? I think we should be able to go to university and study upsetting the French. I've got a BTEC national diploma in hacking the French off. Listen... The other news story, and we don't want to be too specific about Rachel Reeves today, Poppy, but she stood up, she's done a speech, she's talked about growth. It's about building businesses, this Silicon Valley corridor between Cambridgeshire and Oxfordshire. I'm going to build a third runway and I'm going to invest in AI and this country is going to be great. But I thought Harry Cole put it so brilliantly at 4 o'clock. She does that, but in the same speech she says I might have to raise, taxes again because... Frankly, October was rubbish. But when they came in, they so talked incessantly about how this country was on its backside, when in fact, economically we were doing OK. The Tories had stopped being listened to, but our economy was in a far better position than it is now. They talked it down. That affected the markets. They brought in a budget which was really, I think, all about destroying small businesses and making it hard for growth to happen, a complete wrong ideology. And now she pops up today, isn't she? Oh, everything's great. Britain's going to lead the way. How? You can't even agree amongst you about the bloody third runway. She and Starmer want it. Miliband's done one. He's obviously hacked off. He's probably hitting an avocado somewhere with Dale Vince or something. And old Sir Sadiq, don't start me on that, he's saying, I'm going to oppose it with all my might. No plan. They're a mess, aren't they?
Okay, what number relaunch of the government are we on now, Jeremy? Because I can't
11?
keep up. It seems
11?
like it must be. Maybe it's even more. I swear he did 2 last week. I mean, I think it shouldn't come as a surprise to you that people in this Labour front bench, basically none of whom have had a real job, they've all been in Westminster their entire lives, or they've been in the public sector, think that the way you get growth is by sitting around a table and like a cargo coat going, growth. They just say the word.
It's a bloody
over
seance.
And over and
it's like a seance. Let's join hands and ask for growth.
That's what it is. Yeah. That's what it is. But the thing that shocks me, we've been talking about Heathrow for 50 years. We've been talking about Heathrow since before I was even a glint in my dad's eye. I mean, it's unbelievable that we think this new Labour government is going to be any change from the last lot. Again, and as you've just said, I can't wait for this new, little mini statement that will be coming out from Rachel Reeves when, the working and middle classes are going to get screwed over yet again to pay for the fact we've got to service all the debt in this country.
I think when the ONS report in early March, we're going to be absolutely screwed in another budget. But I look at these people and I look at that cabinet and I think, so she's talking about building a runway and growth whilst bringing in policies that screw growth. He's rushing around as sort of overpaid, over-promoted human rights lawyer, trying to impress the world and frankly not caring about what's going on in the streets. And then you've got all these mayors. Burnham will be the next one. They'll be all jumping up and down about pollution. And we know what we think about Sadiq Khan and bloody Miliband, who is frightening. That's just a land grab. I'm not one of those people that goes, I fear for this country, but I honestly think as every day goes past, and you're absolutely right about relaunches, they got rid of Sue Gray, who was supposed to be putting the first 100 days into being for them. She went on day 83. You're right. Relaunches, major speeches, and just a mess, really. That's the feeling, and I think a lot of people feel like that. I really do think a lot of people feel that way.
It's also just using the justification of net zero and like going after the climate. I mean, I think the only thing that's really improved in the last 20 years for everyone's quality of life is that we can now get cheap holidays to Europe. You know, that's actually a fantastic thing. Thank God for Ryanair for letting me jet over to Vienna soon for like 20 quid. And I think taking away one of the few things that's getting better for people in this country and saying you can't have it because of, you know, climate change targets, blah, 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 obviously doesn't affect me. I'm going to be getting on my private jet and going round to Davos conference or whatever. You know, it's like...
David Beckham went to Davos, for God's sake. What's that all about? I mean, that's just... I can't have that. One other story for you. I didn't know I was going to do this, but I want to. Labour, I don't even want to say this. Stand by, people in Talkland. Labour is considering forcing households to pay your BBC licence fee. Stand by, people, don't panic. Even if you only use Netflix. Does anybody say to these pillocks, does anybody say, look, if you upset pensioners and farmers, and then with your left-wing mates at the BBC, you say to people who don't even watch that crap, they'll have to pay. Do you not think you're going to alienate everybody? I just don't get it.
It's incredible. It is incredible. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine. I was like, we never watch the BBC. You know, I looked on the website recently, and I don't know why every programme seems to be about drag queens, but the fact they're now trying to force people to subsidise their awful programming that literally nobody in the country, apart from maybe the people in the BBC production department and their mates, want to watch. You're totally right. There will be no one left in the country that actually likes the Labour Party anymore. I don't know what they're doing. It's like they're being run from the inside by people who hate them. Has anyone else...
Yes, my point, exactly. My point, because if I had a 185-seat majority, but I believe the problem, I think you nailed it there. It's like we can talk about lack of direction and conviction, but it's also madness. You've got this massive majority. I think it's because they promised so many different things to different people to make the pie big enough to appeal to the British people. They doesn't know which way to turn. But the truth of the matter is, they just get it wrong the whole time. And you think, is there nobody in his ear going, if you tell people who don't watch the British bloated crap, whatever I call it, they're going to have to pay 100 and whatever. I mean, they're never going to vote for you, you idiot. But nobody would say that. Or maybe they do and he doesn't listen.
I think he's just trying to pat the backs now of the few people left in the country who like him. So if you're a public sector worker, you know, we're going to look out for you. We're going to look out for the lawyers. We're not going to crack down on, like, political activism within the judiciary. And if you work in the BBC, you probably love Labour anyway. So don't worry, we'll make sure that you won't have to do any cutbacks, despite the fact you're making bad programming. I mean, it's so cynical, but this isn't usually what parties do after 14 years.
Oh, and if you disagree with us, you're a misogynistic, homophobic, racist, right-wing, bigoted thug. I mean, essentially is what they're saying.
I can't believe it's not winning people over. I mean, you know, it's just mad. I don't get it. I swear to God, I don't know what's going on with them. Keir Starmer, if you need any help, you know, you've got my phone number. You can call me at any time and I can tell you what to do.
If you speak to him, I'm not speaking to you again, please can you come on every week? We love having you on. Poppy Coburn, thank you so much indeed. Reader in the Telegraph, the assistant comment editor. Poppy Coburn on Talk Drive, 5:20. We're live across the UK. Ryan's right on it today, Mayor. We're moving on. It keeps a tight hand on the clock. 0344. See, that made Jody laugh, but he keeps a tight hand on his clock. 0344. Why does that make you laugh, Jody? You've got a smutty, dirty man. This probably explains why Cameron hasn't got down on one knee to ask you to get married, because you've a sordid little brain. But I laugh too. Ryan, get your hand off your clock. 0344 419 1000. Text to 87222. This is Talk Drive.
full-length runway in Britain was built in the 1940s. No progress in 80 years. A third runway could increase potential GDP by 0.43% by 2050.
Could a new runway be built that abides with carbon targets, concerns around noise pollution and concerns around air pollution?
That a third runway at Heathrow would unlock further growth, boost investment, increase exports and make the UK more open and more connected.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
5:25, we're live across the UK. Jeremy Kyle on Talk Drive. My children are in the car right now. Oliver, I love you. And Rissy Roo, I love you too. I hope you're okay. They've been swimming. Peter Cardwell is here. Yes, it's great to have him back. You might have read in every single newspaper in the land that Peter went to the doctors with a sore throat and a chest. And you actually did collapse.
I did collapse, yeah. I had a bit of a big red.
Yeah, I was 3 weeks the real flu. And anyway, it made the newspapers because he put, I work with Jeremy Kyle and Mike
Graham. That's not why it made the papers.
Why did it make the papers?
I don't know. I don't know
why. We laughed, and you know that I say to your face what I say behind your back.
Of course.
Mike and I were laughing because Peter always says when he finishes a show, I'll see you on Friday at 4 and Saturday at 10 and Sunday at 10. And at the end of the article, he went, Peter will be back on Talk on Friday at 4 and Saturday at 10. And Mike and I just went, he wrote that, but are you all right, seriously?
I'm absolutely fine.
What was wrong with you? What was wrong with you?
I had a really bad flu, and I'm now almost there. I've still got a little bit of a sore throat, but I'm basically there.
I have to say, without boring my kids who are in the car, it was awful. Vic and I had it for
you had it
3 weeks over Christmas, and I promise you,
so many people have had it. It's horrible.
If I could have gone to hospital on Christmas Day, I would have done it. It felt dreadful. Just real flu. It's hard. Would you? Genuinely serious point here. Have you had the injection?
No, I should have had it, but
will you? Because I will now every year. I've never had it. I reckon.
I almost always got it every year. I just forgot this year. Then I got it. You know, I felt like an idiot. So yeah.
I felt so bad, mate. But I'm glad you're back. It's lovely to have you back because we've missed your dulcet tones. Hold on, I'm reading it. We've missed your dulcet tones and great ability to broadcast so well.
It's been terrible. Yes.
Can I start not with Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer? I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Labour considers forcing households that only use and watch Netflix to pay the BBC licence fee of over 170 quid. Can I put to you what I just put to several other people? Do they listen to nobody? Do they honestly think, having off pensioners, veterans, farmers, and I'm being serious, do they not think that... does nobody, you were a special advisor, say to him, or get him up against a wall and go, listen, mate, this is going to be like a cold cup of sick. This is not going to work.
The thing is, loads of people don't have a TV anymore, and we as broadcasters are sort of working out, you know, what is TV, what is online, what is radio. This station, for example, is on TV, radio, YouTube, lots of different ways that you can get it. So loads of people don't sit down, watch the television in the way that they used to.
I said some months ago, I reckon terrestrial television will be dead in 5 years in this
Wouldn't surprise me. There are a load of people, students for example, who club together, they pay maybe 80 or 90 quid, get a little projector and put it up to their phone and then like project TV.
Do they?
Yeah, they really project things on their screen.
That?
It's just a thing. I've just seen it online. I've seen it on the TikTok. On the TikTok. So honestly, there are lots of different ways that people are watching and listening and interacting with media. So to say that there's a sort of one-size-fits-all, and if you have any TV at all, whether it's Netflix or whatever, I mean, first of all, you're already paying for Netflix.
I think the BBC should
I got the cheaper version. I got the $4.99 one.
Of course you do. You get a little fire stick. I genuinely believe that all of it should be subscription, because I think you should have to pay for what you want and the choice. And you know, if you chose to join 4 stations at 25 quid a year instead of paying the BBC licence fee, I mean, that to me is just another example of Labour just total deafness to the British
I think they
public.
just don't get it. And also, the BBC is a monolith. And should it be smaller? I think so, yeah, probably. There's some things the BBC does and does well. Documentaries, there's a lot of, foreign drama that I really like. There's a load of stuff that I would never listen to, like BBC One Extra, for example, that is there, that is perhaps what some people
But it's
want
left-leaning, and it's supposed to be a state broadcaster. It is left-leaning. It has an opinion.
And it should be objective, and it's not.
No.
But, I mean, children's television, for example, is done in some other ways. There's a lot of American stuff as well. But, I mean, ITV, for example, doesn't do children's television anymore on terrestrial. So
there's many things that ITV don't do anymore on terrestrial television.
There are, yeah.
Yeah, go on.
But no, in terms of what the BBC should be and what the licence fee should be, I think there's a big debate to be had. But the answer is not saying, well, you don't watch TV. You watch a different thing. You watch online, you watch Netflix. Therefore, we're going to add this charge to you as well. I think that's ludicrous.
What do you make of the BBC?
What was that? Is your voice breaking? Are you 13 years old?
I'm 60 this summer.
You're 60 this summer?
July the 7th. Go on, say it.
What?
Say it.
You don't look 60.
Good man. 0344.
Are you going to have a party? Am I going to be invited?
I'll answer both those questions. Absolutely yes and absolutely no. 0344 499 1000. What do you make of ludicrous Labour consideration that they will bring into force that even if you watch Netflix only, you must pay the BBC's licence fee? I want to ask you, we're going to do politics last. What do you make about this death penalty, which is doing the rounds politically? I gave my analogy before. It's a very difficult one. Sarah Sharif's father should be, to me, put down. I'm being completely straight. That's my thought as a father.
So
you say that. When I find a kid
yeah.
with 25 broken bones who's been abused, what does that?
Well, what about all the people who? Well, yes, in his
Axel Rudabikana, those three young girls.
What about the people who could have prevented what Sarah Sharif's father did as well? They should be held accountable too. Look, I don't think the death penalty actually prevents death. I don't think it actually dissuades people from doing things. I don't think it's a preventative measure. And also, a lot of people who would be.
Why do you? That's really interesting. Why do you say that? You're telling me that if you are a mad man, mad woman, being told that you'll be put to death isn't going to stop you. You're just beyond the pale there.
The absolute monster that was Axel Rudabikana wasn't put off by you're going to spend the rest of your natural life in prison.
And then there's
he wasn't put off by that.
No, and there's the other flip side, which several of my friends will tell me, which is, Jez, I understand your argument about money and the morality and all that, but trust me, let them rot in a single room for fearing even going to the shower or the toilet for the next 50 years. So I get it. But again, peeps, what do you make of the death penalty? Yes or no? 0344 499 1000. I can't keep you away from this any longer. Today we had Reset 734 from the Labour Party. They've only been in power 8 months. Rachel Thieves, or Richard III as I call her, stood up. What? She does look like Richard III, doesn't she? The hair.
I've never seen that before.
And you can polish a Richard III, can't you? But you can also flush it away. Listen.
No, I can't unsee it.
Rachel Thieves or Richard III backs a Heathrow expansion third runway. Hear me out. Talks about creating a Silicon Valley of opportunity between Oxford and Cambridge in a boat. Talks about growth. I thought Harry Cole got it right. She and he, when they took over, painted such a dour picture of Britain. The Tories have ruined it. When in fact, our economy was doing quite well. So it flatlined. The budget was appalling. Even today, she can't rule out more tax hikes. We know she's waiting for the ONR in March to say whether we're buggered or not, and that's
OBR. Yeah.
No plan, just confusion, up and down. How are we supposed to be enthusiastic 1 minute? And on top of that, you've got the Labour Party. Miliband not seen.
Yep.
Sadiq Khan out saying, I'm going to oppose this. Civil war ensues, I would imagine.
It's very, very difficult. And I think that Sadiq Khan is going to be very loud in terms of his opposition to the Heathrow third runway. It's confusing, even when you look at what Keir Starmer was writing this morning in the Times. He was talking about the Japanese knotweed of regulation. Well, you've just put a load more regulation on businesses. You've also made it easier for unions to bring grievances for people. He was asked about that at Prime Minister's questions today. Sorry?
The workers' rights thing. Just ties up companies completely.
So if you want to take on, if you're a small business, that 99% of businesses in this country are SMEs, small and medium enterprise, they have an average of about 7 employees. If you want to bring on someone else, it's probably going to cost you about £2,000. Well, a lot of businesses just don't have that kind of cash.
And growth isn't about
around.
building a third runway at Heathrow. It's actually about encouraging those small and medium-sized businesses to be successful, employ
bigger,
more people.
bolder.
And guess what? In their budget, they tax those companies more. So how can you talk about bloody growth then?
Also, all of their growth plans are going to take ages, and this is the problem with a lot of what Labour is doing. They're saying social care is going to take us 3 years to even work out what on earth we're doing, never mind changing it. NHS is a 10-year thing. This growth plan is a 10-year thing. It's like, when are you actually going to do any of this? Surely, if you were in opposition for 14 years, surely you had a plan. We were told there was a plan. We were told it was fully costed. Yet they keep saying, oh, we don't know.
Well, this is really interesting because the one who was supposed to have the plan and implement it, Sue Gray, the first 100 days went.
She didn't last the 100 days.
She went 83. We haven't spoken about it. I'm going to bring you to the example of Donald Trump. Love him or loathe him, he gets
stuff done.
And there's this, have you heard the golf story? Go and watch it. This is brilliant. It's for people just tuning in. He's playing golf at Doral in Miami, played it himself, fantastic, on the 6th hole because he wants to deport the Colombian criminals, and they're all on the airplane, aren't they, with shackles and stuff, and Selena Gomez had a cry like we give her stuff. They're going home, right? The president's, he's playing golf, the president of Colombia goes, I'm not having him. Mm-hmm. He was getting a phone call on the 6th from the White House. By the time he got to the 8th hole, which is about 25 minutes, he'd gone back. And they'd gone back to the Colombians and said, if you don't take these people, we're going to create a 25% tariff on all goods coming from your country to ours.
Yeah, by the way.
And you've got 1 week and it'll be 50%. And by the 8th hole, the Colombian president had backed down and sent his own jet.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We need that.
It's a lot of strong action, decisive action. Love him or loathe him, he is someone who gets things done. And there are just a lot of politicians in this country who really don't, even with a huge majority.
I fear. Do you fear for this country? Or
I do. I think we're in decline.
I hate sitting here every day.
I don't know. We were told the adults are back in charge. We were told in July, it's all going to be fine. It's going to be boring government. Everything's going to be all right. Where's the plan? What are they going to do? They might say today, look, we've shown you what the plan is.
No, they haven't. They don't show me any conviction.
They're not turning things around, and they keep blaming the Tories. Look, the Tories did a lot of things they shouldn't have done over 14 years. Not taking that away for a second. But you look at Prime Minister's questions today, all it is we'll take no lectures, we'll take no lectures. Yes, but what are you doing, Keir Starmer? What are the positives that you've changed in the last 7 months?
Ryan says, we break shortly. No. I'm in charge today. No, I just want to keep asking him a couple of questions because it's so lovely to have him back. They can look enviously at America and think, yeah, it's a different thing, isn't it? The president. But for me, Starmer is the prime example of a politician who has no conviction, he's a bloody lawyer at the end.
I don't think he has an economic policy. I think what he's done is he has subcontracted his economic policy to Rachel Reeves. Well, guess what? I don't think she is one either. I think she's probably out of her depth. And the fact
Rachel
is
from accounts?
And they need
Richard III? Rachel, it's all you can see. The haircut.
All I can see.
Go online, all of you.
Once you point it out.
Go online and look at Richard III. It's a bob with a fringe. She looks like Richard III. Third.
Well, she may well have a winter of discontent.
Very, very good. Just final thing, if it's all right with you, Ryan, if I could ask him this without you getting stroppy again, just keep your hand on the clock. He keeps his hand on his clock. His clock, man, what's wrong with you?
I didn't say anything.
The most unbelievable for our viewers, so many of them texting, is this. The day he walks into Downing Street, that weasel Starmer took down the picture of Margaret Thatcher, right? Because it was just terrible bloody woman.
Like people looking down on them.
Today he says, I'm going to invoke the spirit of Margaret Thatcher and cut through the thickets of red tape to clear the way for growth. And his idea in doing this is to set up a quango or a committee to look into how he can destroy red tape. These people have taken on thousands more civil servants. They've created 7 million quangos since they started. How is anybody supposed to take this man seriously?
Well, the problem is that a lot of what they say is, we'll look into this and we'll decide and we'll think about it and have a review. Well, surely you had a manifesto, you had a plan for government. Surely you should have been ready to go on day one. It comes into so many things. Jess Phillips, for example, campaigner for years and years and years about grooming gangs, for example, and exploitation of children. Well, why wasn't on day one some of those recommendations, some of those ideas ready to go? Surely the Home Office says, we have this, we know your record, we know you're going to be a minister, everybody knew Labour was going to win, this is what we're going to do. And here we are, 7 months in.
Trumpesque, that, right? Day one, executive orders, love it or like it, they're being done day one.
7 months in, and we are just nowhere with this government. It's just inertia.
Yeah.
You go down the street, ask 10 people, what has the government actually done in the last 7 months? And I'm not sure all of those 10 people could tell you one concrete thing the government has done, for good or for ill.
It's great to have you back. I'm glad you are better, and we have missed your supreme political nous. I know I have actually missed you.
And I'm back tomorrow at 4, and on Friday at 4, and on Saturday at 10, and on Sunday at 10.
Oh, God. Get out.
I will.
Talk Drive.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Place to be tomorrow morning on Talk with Mike. Morning Glory from 6 every single morning, Monday to Friday. Fantastic. Hello to William Briscoe. Sounds like... What's Ryan frowning for now? You frown a lot. I've got to tell you this. I'm going to speak to your wife. You frown. Yeah, stop frowning. I'm joking. Jez, regarding the third runway at Heathrow, it will never happen. In the 26 years I've worked for British Airways, they were always talking about it. I can guarantee it will never, ever happen. What we need to do, perhaps, is the Boris idea, reclaiming land from the sea. William in Hawley. Dennis is in Manchester. This third runway is nothing more than a dead cat. Look at what we're doing. Ignore how rubbish we are. Right, I don't understand that, but there we go. Thank you, Dennis in Manchester. Michael's near Sonning. Lovely in Berkshire. The one thing that the Chancellor could have done and should have done months ago is award a small modular nuclear reactor project to Rolls-Royce so they can develop the technology and sell it around the world. Hello to David in Oxfordshire. The third runway is going to be built on the A4 road. Shops, houses and hotels are going to be demolished. It's not going to be built on a field. Hello to Chris from Buckinghamshire. More lies from Labour on a daily basis. The Oxford to Cambridge rail is already in progress. Oxford to Milton Keynes is already being built. It opens to passengers later this year. The trains are practising already. See the two carriages going along every single day. That is a fact. I agree with Barry. This is a caller earlier. Andy, Doncaster should have a big airport. Hello to Paul Jones. Rachel from Accounts talked about new jobs, but about going to schools in these areas to promote them to our kids to get the education. I don't understand that, but I completely agree with you. Ben King. Do you think his middle name's E? Benny? Never mind. Nobody laughs in this studio anymore. I'm concerned about immigration more so now than before and two-tier policing, but voted Lib Dem in the elections. They were alternative Tories in my constituency. Does that mean the Lib Dems are far right by association? No, I don't think they're far right. I just think they're far from intelligent. Michael in Norfolk. Jez, Rachel Reeves' pep talk today was about as significant as a fart in a thunderstorm. God, I love the linguists amongst you. Thank you. Hello to Paul. Very nice of you. Hello to Darren. All about runways. Oh, good Lord. Talk. Is the third runway at Heathrow a new Labour initiative to stop the boats? They can then fly in more comfort than coming on a boat. That's very, very true. I need to get all these done. There's so many of them. Hello to Doug. Doug in Wiltshire. On the subject of planning, just looked up at the Stonehenge Tunnel project. It was cancelled last year to cost up approximately 180 million, and that's without any construction work having been done. Don't get me on Stonehenge. I cannot abide it. Danny in West Yorkshire. I would vote for the death penalty on sick animals like that one in Southport. It would be a great deterrent. Labour don't like deterrents like Rwanda. Jeremy, the French haven't said they are offended by HMS Agincourt, so why the discussion? Even if the French do object, nobody really cares what they think anyway. Couldn't agree more. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. For a text, 0344 499 1000. For a phone call. Steve, a new caller. Oh my God, this is so exciting. I'm going to let you into a little secret. He's in Barry in Wales. How are you, Steve?
I'm fine, Jeremy. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Is it all right?
Yeah, it's lovely.
I got to tell you about, but I'm going to tell you this. Jodie, you'll love this. So my son, who won't be listening, right, is obsessed with Gavin and Stacey. He's 16 on March the 30th, and I bought him the tour to go around Barry, and he'll be so embarrassed he won't want to go. But there you go. Were you a Gavin and Stacey nut? Because I thought it was amazing.
It was all right.
All right.
It was all right.
Brilliant. OK, then, crack on.
Well, if they need the migrants to community work, like 40 hours a week, you watch how many boats stop straight away.
Oh, mate, listen, you know the Trump thing this week? I saw this amazing footage. I don't think I told Ryan. They had this footage of this Colombian who'd been deported by Trump, crying back in Colombia, going, I think you should all be very careful before you go to America again because they'll deport you. Yes, they will. And if we did that here, people might get the message.
And turn the heating off in the hotels for at least 8 to 10 hours a day.
I love it. I can't believe that you're on Barry Island and you're not a massive fan of Gavin and Stacey. New caller, enjoying the station, enjoying the show?
Oh, loving it. Really, really good.
Tell your friends, go around Barry on Ness's thingy, and yeah, great. Good to have you on. Let's go to London. Mark, you're on Talk Drive. Very good evening to you, sir. How are you?
Hello, Jeremy. How you doing, mate?
Not too bad. Who do you support football-wise?
Fulham.
Sorry?
Fulham.
Are you going to Newcastle? I will be watching your team at St James's Park on Saturday. I bet you won't be.
No.
You're
No,
going to
I
get
won't.
battered by Newcastle.
No, we won't.
Yeah, you will. Kevin O'Sullivan is a fan of Fulham as well, and I'm going to say that to him every time I see him now till the weekend. Anyway, Mark, crack on. What you got?
Right, regarding this death penalty, it should come back, especially for that. I'm not going to waste my breath on his name, but the Southport.
Axel Rudabikani, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to waste my breath on that name. And for people like who killed Lee Rigby.
Yes, yes.
And treason and stuff. And there's the other thing. I will even do it for free.
Yeah, we can't say that, but thank you for your call. Terry's in Slough. He makes a very salient point, to be fair. He says, if you execute murderers, they can never re-offend. I think that's important, and I understand, but I do understand the other side. The other side says, oh, what if we get it wrong? But honestly, so appalled. And I think social media has a part to play, because I think people know more about stuff nowadays, and I think that impacts people's minds. We're heading to Brighton. Dale, you're on Talk Drive. Hello.
Hello, John. How you doing, buddy?
How's Brighton? Are you still under the control of the Greens with rubbish all over your streets?
Oh, no, please don't. No, honestly, don't tell me. But no. But I've got to admit, I phoned up. I actually tried to phone Mike Graham this morning purely because
You did what to Mike Graham this morning?
Give him a call.
Did you? Did you get through?
But I couldn't get through for the life of me, buddy, because they were talking about growth, and what the Labour Party keeps saying, oh, growth this and growth that. I'll be quite honest with you, I'm actually really impressed with the growth the Labour Party have achieved in the last 7 months, to be honest. The way they've improved the growth of the Reform UK Party is so impressive. It beggars belief, mate.
I was about to open my mouth and go, are you stark raving mad? And you just got in time.
I got you there, didn't I, buddy? Oh, no, they have improved Reform UK like nobody else could have ever done. Party political broadcast, here, there and everywhere. No, all they got to do is just carry on what they're doing.
I think people have to... I think the cynics have to be really careful to write the Reform Party off. And I'll tell you why I say that. I'm sure they're not the perfect finished article, but I think the British people... I keep coming back to this. I think the British people are fed up of being taken for mugs. I think they want more transparency. I think they want more honesty. And I think they want better political people in their lives. And I think that's what they're asking for. Great to have you on, Del. Really appreciate it. Tell your friends about the show in Brighton.
Of course I will, bud. No problem. Take care, bud. He
hasn't got any friends. I'm joking, Del. Because it reminds me of the time I went to Brighton University with my daughter Ava. Have I told you this story, Amy? Honestly, went to the university. I have told you, have I? I'll shut. All right, word for word. Do you know what? Do you know the people that work here with me? All they do is... fine, go to an ad break. Tough. Done. Thanks. Bye.
thing I did like announced by Donald Trump yesterday, this is an offer of roughly 2 million federal workers, basically buying them out. We're offering what we would call a redundancy package. I've worked in offices where they've offered redundancy payments like this, and what we saw was an awful lot of people who are good people who can get another job very quickly in the private sector or elsewhere. They take that. Lovely, I'll get paid for 8 months, thank you very much. They get another job. The people who know they're unemployable anywhere else, they stay. You get stuck with the worst people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So he said, show me a picture of your wife, Victoria. And I went, OK. And he went, she's blonde. I went, no. He said, she's got short hair. No. So I said, that's my wife.
And then what did I say after that?
Wow.
Then what did I say after that?
You're punching.
There we go, correct.
But at least I've got somebody in my life.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Push the button, Amy, thank you.
Sport Summary on Talk.
Ryan's just said he's got somebody, Amy says she's got somebody, Jodie said she's got somebody, and I don't know what Harry Potter's into, so I'm not interested.
Right.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
I don't know what Harry Potter's into. Have you got a partner? Have you got no? Oh, we've had that.
One of those ones.
I don't know what that means. If you're listening on the radio, it doesn't really work, but it's hands are like, not so sure.
That's basically like...
Obviously seeing somebody who's got a relationship with somebody else. Join me after the break, we'll get the truth.
A thruple sort of thing.
That sounds rude. David Hay. Loads of time for sport today.
I know, and we need time tonight.
Big Champions League, final league games tonight. Can I ask a question very quickly? I know we've got Villa against Celtic, Girona against Arsenal, Man City against Club Brugge, important night for Pep, and Eindhoven against Liverpool. Can I ask a question? You know this new league of 36 teams? Top 24 qualify, top 8 automatically, second 16, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But not everybody plays everybody.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. I mean, you play...
So how is that worked
It's all done on... Again, that's done on seeding. In terms of who you play in the league phase, it's done on seeding. But yeah, of course...
Are you a fan of the
I'm going to be honest with you. If I had it my own way, I would go back to how it used to be.
I didn't like playing the same team twice.
I thought that added to the group where you'd sort of play them once and then there could be something from the first game that adds drama to the second game. Look, one thing I would say is this evening is chaos, Jeremy. Absolute chaos. So by my mathematics, right, 36 teams started the competition. 24 teams this evening, so what's that, 2/3 of the league, have all got something to play for this evening, which is pretty exciting. So, I mean, 8th place, which is the final place to go into the automatic. Yeah. That's Leverkusen on 13 points in 8th place. You go all the way down to 24th place, Stuttgart, which is the final for the knockout phases. They're on 10 points. That's 3 points separating 8th place down to 24th place.
Good at job. He can tell the difference between 13 and 10 is 3.
No, but I'm saying 3 points separating all those teams means that tonight is going to be quite a dramatic night. Hence why I've got all these notes and I've got all these, I've done loads of research for this evening. In terms of the English and British teams, okay, Man City are 25th. Man, who would have thought after 7 games that Man City would not be in the top 24, which is quite incredible.
If they win at Club Brugge, if Club Brugge, they beat them, do they qualify automatically?
If they win tonight, City, they're guaranteed to be through.
Liverpool top.
So they're definitely through.
Not that you get any benefit from finishing top, by the way.
Well, again...
do you get an easier draw next time round?
Well, it depends. It depends who comes sort of 16th in the league phase. And if you look kind of at the table at the moment, there's some of the big boys. What's interesting is your Madrid, your Bayern Munich's are around that kind of number.
Big boys.
So Liverpool might end up coming top, but not getting an easy draw. So City have to win or they're out. Remarkable. Liverpool are through. Arsenal, all bar a ridiculous goal swing, are also guaranteed to be in the top 8. Aston Villa are 9th, so they're 1 place out of the top 8, level on points with 8th place Leverkusen. I think if Villa win this evening, I think they will come top 8.
What about Celtic? Qualify for the knockout stages for the first, which is a great job.
Yeah.
Which is a great job.
Since when, Jeremy?
I don't know. I have no idea. I was going to pretend that I knew what I was talking about.
No, don't lie.
Well, sorry, where's that come from?
Well, no, I thought if you didn't know, you'd say you don't know.
You're a really, really good broadcaster.
Can I plug what I'm doing tonight?
No. Breaking news, Arsenal have had a bid rejected for Ollie Watkins, the Aston Villa striker. However, it's expected Arsenal will return with an improved offer. Now, that is very interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because that Duran, who I think is world-class, I think I would do business if I was Aston Villa. I'd let Ollie Watkins go and build my team around Duran, worth 80 million quid. Breaking news.
That's fascinating, by the way. So that's caught me by surprise.
Yeah.
That is a massive, massive story. Arsenal, we know, need a centre-forward.
Yep.
They've lacked that clinical number 9 for a long time. And you're right, Jez. Villa, with PSR and everything, are going to have to sell one of these lads.
Yeah.
Duran's the younger player, isn't he?
Yep.
Watkins is the more proven player.
Yep.
But has Duran got a higher ceiling than Watkins?
Interesting. Breaking news as well, Steven Gerrard, the Etifak, I can't say
Etifak,
yeah, is finalising his departure from the Saudi Pro League side. So he is, I mean, he's a honestly, why are so many of the golden generation crap at managing? I'm being serious.
Yeah, no, it's a good question to answer because your Lampards, your Gerrards, your Rooneys, they're all failing and not doing very well. They're just above the relegation zone, 5 points above the relegation zone, won just one of the last 14 league games. He's on £50 million a year.
Yeah, he's done all right. Marcus Rashford and Man United. Let's talk about this. I just want to talk to you about Ruben Amorim very quickly. 39 years of age, Portuguese manager, been in Manchester, 10 weeks, celebrated his 40th birthday, looks 50 already. He is undoubtedly putting his foot down with Rashford as Ten Hag did with Ronaldo. Here's an analogy for you. How can any coach ever get hold of a team like that unless they are able to take on players who have too much control? When you take on players... You said it yesterday. Pogba with Jose Mourinho. No, it was another man. He went. Ten Hag ultimately went. Are they going to back Ruben Amorim? Because if I was playing somebody 325 grand a week, I would expect a lot more. But I also know that when you go in the media and say, I'd rather put my 60-year-old goalkeeping coach, everybody will rally around Rashford. He'll say I'm feeling anxious and they'll probably get rid of the manager. What are your thoughts on that?
I simply think Manchester United have got to go all in here on Ruben Amorim. Man United have been failing in every kind of footballing sense for the best part of a decade now through bad managerial appointments, through bad recruitment, and also having a bad bunch of players, right? And Marcus Rashford, unfortunately, is on $350k a week, right? It's an absolute shambles. Whoever sanctioned that contract needs their head looking at because he's not good enough player for that.
£50,000 a day.
Yeah, it's staggering. So I really hope that Man United back Ruben Amorim. I think he's a young coach. I think he's an exciting coach. He's done well in Portugal. And whoever comes in at Man United, you've got that squad there is rubbish. Whoever comes in, whether it's Pep or Klopp, comes into that team, they'll need time to get rid of the deadwood, which, let's be honest, Jeremy, is basically 90% of that squad, right?
So Paul Scholes said the other day, out of the 11 that played, he'd have sold 9.
I couldn't agree anymore. So Ruben Amorim says to the board and Ineos, Rashford, I'm not having him. They say, OK, fine, and they do everything they can to ship him.
But also, if you go online and you say, I'd rather play my 60-year-old coach, do you risk ruining his value in the transfer market?
I would say the timing of that comment, given we're a week away from the window closing, I personally... You could have saved that till after it's closed.
You've got a minute and a half. Transfer window closes 31st. I just told you, breaking news, that Arsenal have had a bid rejected for Aston Villa striker Ollie Watkins, the England national. It is expected Arsenal will return with a better offer. Any more deals that you can let us know about that might happen before the window closes Monday?
I think Spurs are the team to look forward to. I think Spurs
look forward to what, watching or laughing at?
Well, yeah, a little bit of both. Spurs have got to get players in. I mean, they are literally down to almost single-figure players now. I think they've got to back Ange Postecoglou in the next couple of days. That's an absolute must, isn't it?
I'll give you an inside knowledge. You and Ferguson will end up at West Ham.
Who?
The young man from Brighton, Evan Ferguson, not you.
Good striker. Also, can I just plug what I'm doing this evening? It's really exciting news. So, talkSPORT this evening, big night Champions League football. On the radio, you got live football commentary, myself and a host of experts on the YouTube, and also connected TV. talkSPORT now, guys, is on TTV. You can get it on your smart TVs. I'm hosting a Champions League.
You're hosting it?
I've been doing it for the last 6 months. Can I finish off the plug? We're doing a watch-along tonight, Champions League, on the YouTube, on your smart TVs. I've got European football experts, fans with me in the studio, 18 games, doing a brilliant watch-along. Goals as they go in.
So you're like the Jeff Stelling of talk?
Do not be disrespectful to Jeff Stelling.
He's a legend. Can I just say, I love to see Andy Goldstein earlier, because I said to him, all the footage of promoting this new online and on-screen talkSPORT has Darren Bent. He's front and centre and you're nowhere to be seen. He said, yeah, my lawyers are dealing with that, so it's good. Listen, congratulations.
Yeah, no, so thank you for saying well done, Sam.
The telly career you owe me. Well done, I'm in awe of you. Do you?
Yeah, it's all on you.
He's on the telly later on talkSPORT. The news is next on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, hour 3 of Drive on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense, Wednesday night. Thanks for tuning in. JK till 7. Kev, of course, here. Kev O'Sullivan from 7 o'clock tonight. And Petri Hoskins, she's a dish. You understand where I'm coming from on that. She's on from 10 o'clock. If you want to be part of this vain attempt at a show, 0344 499 1000. Jody, Ryan, taking your calls, WhatsApp that call, voice notes, whatever, and text to 87222. Start your message with the word Talk. Jez, bringing back the death sentence. I would like it to be brought back. It should be for killers. If they need someone to pull the lever, I'd do it, says Justine. Tara's in Devon. Yes to the death penalty, 100%. Take a life and submit yours. Maybe that would indeed be a deterrent. Other people disagreeing. Neil say, yeah, we know Achilles didn't. We've done all that. Jez, to summarise Reeves Day, come and invest in Britain so you can pay lots of tax to support our bloated public sector. Not that enticing. Daryl, hello. I know, Paris actually killed Achilles with an arrow. I understand, I got it round the wrong way. Mike's in Erith. Do you know where Erith is? No. Rachel from Accounts stated that the opposition isn't coming with alternative ideas. I don't recall Labour ever helping the Tories with any alternative ideas. Steve, more Poppy, please. Made my day again. Common Sense by the bucket load. Excellent show. Yeah, Poppy Coburn, deputy content editor from The Telegraph, will be on this station, on this show regularly. Chris is in Epping. Nice forest there. When we got rid of the death penalty, our country was ready for it, and mostly people were law-abiding, but our country is very different now. We have imported people who don't respect our civilised ways and have brought their own cultures with them. So perhaps it is time to return to that death penalty again, as it is something that could surely garner respect. I don't know. John's in Bromley and Ken, watch out, Jez. The TV licence tax being renamed the Wi-Fi tax. Everyone pays. Yeah, you might be right. Eddie, St Albans. Jez, can I offer you a small crumb of comfort? Labour are 1/8 of the way through their term. Only 7/8 of more to go. God, is it 1/8? I suppose that's probably good. Mike, I'm in favour of the third runway. It means more planes, which will mean we can deport more illegal migrants. Glyn, Holford or Hoford, Boris Island was the best option. I don't understand that. John's on the Isle of Wight. John, hello, I hate this Labour government. This is John, not me. Evil, self-serving, ideological claptrap that can only drag our beautiful country into bankruptcy. I am so angry. Your anger, John, Barden on the Isle of Wight, is shared by many. 6:05. We're live across the UK. I always look forward to Wednesdays after 6 o'clock because a man who speaks more sense than anybody I know is always on the show. Brendan O'Neill, chief political writer with Spiked. How are you, my friend?
Hey, Jeremy, how you doing?
Well, it's just been another week of brilliance and hell and all sorts of different things. I'm going to start slightly differently if I can. I'm not going to start with Starmer and Richard III, Rachel Thieves. I'm going to do that in a bit. I'm going to talk about the death penalty. I want to start with this story that first rose to prominence a couple of days ago when we were told that the woke Royal Navy had decided to rename their latest attack submarine HMS Agincourt, but that had been dubbed unfair. It might, in fact, upset the French. So the Navy were deciding to call it HMS Achilles. Loads of people, quite rightly, walking around going, this is woke bleeding nonsense. I mean, for goodness sake, this is ludicrous. News today that King Charles got involved, our woke king, they're saying here, and it was he who raised this again when Labour came in. Thoughts on that, Brendan?
It's terrifying, I think. It's really scary that we possibly now have a woke king, you know, the king of wokeness, Charles III. It's awful. It makes you miss the Queen even more. The Queen would never have done anything stupid and woke like this. I think it's the most bizarre idea that calling a submarine Agincourt would really tick off the French that much. I mean, the French know their history as well as we do. They know that we beat them in the Battle of Agincourt in the 100 Years' War, and that they beat us about 20 or 30 years later. You know, it was a lot of to and fro in the 1400s, and people know that. They're not babies. They can cope with being reminded of the battles of history. Also, let's remind ourselves that the French are not shy about celebrating war when they need to. Their national anthem, which, by the way, I love, has that infamous line, we must, you know, wet the fields with blood. You know, it's a celebration of war. It's a celebration of all the conquering that they've done over the past few hundred years. So this is ridiculous. Every nation we're grown-ups. We know that wars took place in history, and King Charles, rather, should not go around changing the names of things to avoid offending other nations.
I couldn't agree more. And you know, you look at what's going on in the world, Brendan, and you think, you know, before we get into Labour, you know, rape gangs, people being murdered, immigration problems, financial hardship, and we've got a navy, presumably a government and a king, who are worried about upsetting the French with something. I mean, I'm different to you. I'd upset the French every single day. If I could get a job upsetting the French, I'd be delighted to do that on a daily basis. But to me, it's about priorities, and they're all wrong. Let me throw a couple of other things at you before we get to the main political story. Labour, in its madness, more madness, considering forcing households that only watch Netflix, Brendan. I mean, your face already. That they'll have to pay the BBC licence fee. And I said to somebody earlier, it's like these people don't listen to anybody. It's just a tax grab again.
Well, that's exactly right. You know, firstly, it's a tax grab. It's very authoritarian. It just is unworkable as far as I can see. But also, you're absolutely right. They are so out of touch with how people are feeling and how people are thinking. Because there are a lot of people out there who are really ticked off with the BBC at the moment. They think it's gone hyper woke. They think it looks down its nose at ordinary Brits. They think it became the Brexit bashing corporation during the Brexit years, which it did. So people are worried about the BBC, and many people are turning their backs on it, and they're choosing not to pay their licence fee and not to watch the BBC, and that should be their right. And for Labour to swan in and say, well, actually, if you've got a TV and you're watching anything at all, we might force you to pay the licence fee. It's a really tyrannical measure. I actually have increasingly come around to the point of view that compelling us by law to fund the BBC is a problem to begin with.
I agree.
We should not be forced under threat of criminal punishment to fund a broadcaster that is so often out of touch with how British people feel. So Labour is going to make that whole problem worse. I think one upside from Labour's stupid tax grab is that it might raise the question of the licence fee even further to the top of public discussion, and that wouldn't be a bad thing.
I agree. I mean, listen, I said it earlier, I don't know what you think, but I think in 5 years' time, terrestrial television will be a busted flush anyway. And I don't understand that it's just one corporation. And that's not because I work on a commercial station, and I worked for ITV for 15 years, and you only survived in terms of what you achieved, and then advertisers would buy their adverts on the stations and the programmes that work. But the BBC is supposed to be our state broadcaster. What it's become, you say woke, I'd say left-leaning and woke, and very opinionated and very forceful in how it sees and how it promotes things. And I think that's very, very dangerous. But to be told, you know, you have to... Terrestrial television will disappear. They should be subscription-based, and we should, as individuals, be able to make the free choice to say, I want to watch sport, a news channel, I'll put a kids channel on, I'll put a movie channel on, and I'll put, I don't know, a sci-fi channel on, and I'll pay 25 quid a month for those, which is still cheaper than the BBC. I don't understand it. And most of all, I think what people get offended about is the theory that you've come out with, but also the quality is rubbish. The quality of what the BBC... Yes, there are good documentaries and there are dramas, but the rest of it's rubbish. Rubbish.
Yeah, I think the licence fee is untenable in the modern era. In the era of streaming, subscription-based TV channels, you know, I subscribe to, I think, 5 different TV channel streaming services now. Every month I pay 10 quid or whatever it is, and I'm very happy to, because I watch a lot of stuff on them. The BBC should be one of them. I should have the choice to give the BBC 10 quid a month, and then I'll watch its stuff. That's how it needs to catch up with the modern era. You know, I'm old enough to remember when there were 3 TV channels. I remember when Channel 4 came online when I was a kid, and we were like, oh my God, wow, 4 channels. Now there are thousands and thousands, and you can get them on your phone while you're on the bus going to work. It's a whole different era, and unless the BBC catches up, I think more people are going to stop paying their fee and just choose what they want to watch.
Couldn't agree more. Can we quickly, again, we will finish with Reeves and Starmer, can we talk about the other main story today? A majority of the public, Brendan, think that the UK should bring back the death penalty with the strongest support, this is really surprising me today, amongst millennials, a poll has revealed. 3 in 5 millennials, nearly 60%, said the capital punishment should be reintroduced, with only a quarter opposed. Thoughts on that?
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I was also struck that the highest number was amongst millennials, because we have this tendency. Well, someone like me has this tendency. I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm older. You look at millennials and Gen Z as kind of woke and pathetic, but maybe that's not the case.
Well,
maybe
Poppy Coburn made a point earlier, which I forgot to put to you, which I will now. She said, with the advent of social media and the very things that we're talking about, far more transparency. We get our news online, we get it quicker. There's figures and pictures and mobile phones and videos. Maybe some of the horrific stuff by these animals, Axel Rudabicano, the people that macheted poor Lee Rigby to death in broad daylight. Maybe when you see that stuff, maybe when it's not hidden, when it's not just a court case. We're seeing trials where judges are on television putting people away for 50 years. Maybe that has created amongst this younger generation a desire for actually these scumbags to not be allowed liberty at all ever. Now, of course, you get the other argument, which is, a life for life, why lower yourself to that level? But I would say that when you have children, and I would think this will be the reason for the millennials, your opinion changes massively. Massively.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this over the past few months, in fact, with following the Southport massacre, which was one of the great, terrible, awful, unspeakable crimes of our time. No question about it. I am against the death penalty for a lot of reasons. I don't want the state to have that level of power, but also I think it's a greater punishment, potentially, to force someone to live in squalor for the rest of their rotten life, rather than to give them the easy way out and to allow them to pose as a martyr, which a lot of these freaks would do, and a lot of their followers would say they were martyrs if they were killed. So I'm against it for those reasons, but I've never been off the view, which you see amongst kind of Guardianistas and other kind of limousine liberals, this idea that anyone who supports the death penalty must just be a backwater idiot from some part of England where they don't know what's going on in the world. I've never subscribed to that view. When I've met people who support the death penalty, they are very intelligent. They know why they want it, and they make a convincing case. And in a democracy, maybe they will win out. So I think it's a good discussion for us.
I'm really interested in your analogy there, and I love that, because you're right. The backwater village idiot from somewhere in the middle of England who wants to murder people is exactly what the Democratic Party thought middle America was, and 90 million that voted for Donald Trump. Let's bring it to today. Some would say an interesting day. I would say Rachel Thieves, or Richard III, as I now call her, Brendan, because she looks like Richard III. I think, have a look at her picture, it's brilliant. I'm just calling her Richard III. I didn't really understand today. She jumps up, she talks about, I'm backing a Heathrow expansion, a third runway. It's all about growth, growth, growth. We're going to turn this corridor between Oxford and Cambridge, Silicon Valley. It's AI. We're going to lead the world. We are the best. Keir Starmer stands up and says, I agree, and we're going to invoke the spirit of Margaret Thatcher, having taken down a picture. We're going to cut red tape by introducing another Quango to talk about it. When they came to power, again, Harry Cole was spot on with this earlier, I think, as he said, they spent the first few weeks saying, this is terrible. 14 years of... We're skint. It's a complete and utter disaster. They gave their mates £11 billion. They talked about the black hole again and again. The economy flatlined because it was doing all right. Then they brought in a budget that was supposed to be about growth that basically said to any businesses, small, medium and large, it's going to cost you more. We're going to screw you to the ground. Well, that's not going to incentivise me to carry on. Oh, and while we're at it, we're going to give workers' rights that are just outrageous. And I'm feeling anxious. It's a Monday. We'll have a week off. We'll pay you. They're going to do that sort of stuff as well. And so then growth didn't happen and everybody criticised the budget. And after all that misery, she stands up today and expects us all to go, oh, it's fantastic. Britain's great. No, it's not. It's on its arse, isn't it?
I don't buy this pro-growth talk at all. I'm in favour of economic growth. I think we should build more, and I think we need that third runway, which, by the way, we've been talking about for decades, and no one's done anything about.
We might need it, but it'd take us 20 years to get planning, wouldn't it?
Well, that's right. It will take ages to get planning, and then there'll be loads of health and safety regulations and red tape, as Keir Starmer has suddenly discovered, that will make it even harder to build. In the time that we've been discussing one measly extra runway at Heathrow, China has built about 50 or 100 new airports. China is building airports all the time, and we can't even add an extra runway. So we do need growth, but I don't buy it from this government. I don't buy that they are going to slash all that red tape, and I don't buy that they are going to turn to growth. This is a government that is addicted to bureaucracy.
Yes. Did you know they've added thousands of civil servants since they came to power 8 months ago?
Yeah, so they just keep adding layer upon layer of box-checking bureaucracy which makes everything harder. Also, they are completely beholden to the net zero religion. Whatever they might say, these are the kind of politicians who bow down to that prophetess of doom, Greta Thunberg, who made excuses for the death cult of Extinction Rebellion, who said that we're going to go to hell in a handcart, as the whole human species will go to hell in a handcart unless we slash our carbon emissions to zero by 2030. I don't believe they've had a Damascene conversion from that religion to the policy.
Well, this is really interesting, because it was the thing I wanted to bring up with you. So there she is making her announcement, Brendan, and Starmer's sort of, backing it up. But the head of the energy department, Ed Miliband, that I think one of the scariest men ever, and I'm being completely serious, nowhere to be seen. At the same time, Sir Sadiq, don't start me, he says, and I quote, "I will resist the plan with all my might because this will have a severe impact on noise, air pollution and meeting our climate change targets." So immediately you can see, on the one hand, to try and create the growth they've promised the people that voted for them, they're going to have to go against their Green mates, who are going to dig their heels in. All those mayors, Burnham will be next, you watch, it'll happen. Where does that leave us as a country? Just a mess, man. Just a mess. Just a mess.
Exactly right. They're not even going to get it past their own colleagues in the Labour Party. I had to laugh when I heard the pipsqueak mayor of London talking about all my might, as if he's going to, take his sword out and slash down.
No, probably be a zombie knife, because he's probably. I can't. And I get people think I'm being really unfair. I can't have him in a million years, but a very outspoken comment. I blame Londoners. Only 1 million people out of 12 million voted, and he got back in for another 4 years. He should have come out of your houses and voted Sadiq Khan out. I find it astonishing, though, because you've got that Green lobby. And, I'm desperate to interview, I'd love to interview Miliband and just basically say this to him. So your tractor tax is to take away lands so that you can grab it, build your wind farms, which you technically know don't create enough electricity. So what you're saying to the British public is, in the quest for being green and doing the right thing, you'd have to import electricity from another country, and our bills will go up, and we can't. Well, ours is the most expensive electricity already. How do you justify that? Wouldn't be able to answer the question.
I completely agree with you on Ed Miliband. He terrifies me because he has got that look in his eye of a religious convert to the core
cult
environmentalism, the death cult of climate change hysteria, which is this modern day cultish religion which has convinced itself that the world is ending and we must all atone for the sins of modernity. That is what these people believe. And the idea that any party, any government that's got Ed Miliband in it, or any party that has got Sadiq Khan in it, is going to be able to do all these things that would actually benefit working people, create jobs and create growth, I just don't believe it. And when Starmer evokes the spirit of Margaret Thatcher, that's when you know they're talking nonsense, because there is no way this technocratic grey dweeb is going to embody the spirit of Thatcher, who really did slash things and really did make growth a possibility. It's just not going to happen.
Technocratic grey dweeb has to be my favourite phrase ever. The other thing about Miliband that I find astonishing is that they all have these great values, but the British public, somebody rang up earlier, I'd love your take on this very quickly before we finished, and said, the problem for the Labour Party is they promised so many things to so many people before they got in that nothing, it's all reactive now. It's not proactive. There doesn't appear to be a plan. This quest with the green energy thing, if they told the British people, or if the Tories had been in a better position where they told the British people that the truth is that your electricity, whilst they quest to be seen as grey. What happened the other day? Did you see it? I want President Trump to know, said that grey technocratic, not the dweeb, the other one, Miliband. The net zero strike is unstoppable. And Trump just went, well, I stopped it 10 minutes ago. When he stood up, I don't know if you saw the footage, he went, we're leaving the Paris Accord. He said, they told us 12 years ago the world was ended, but we're still here, so we're leaving it. And, we laugh, but the guy gets more done in 5 minutes. I fear for our country, but I do think one thing, mate, to sum up, really, I don't think after the next 4 years I don't think they'll be back for years and years. I think people will absolutely realise what socialism in its purest form is about and what it does to a country.
I think they're in massive trouble when they leave office, which can't come soon enough in my view, because they've just done a terrible job. And as one of your callers said, we're only an eighth of the way through. But, you know, you're right to raise Trump in this discussion, because what Trump has done over the past couple of weeks is extraordinary. You know, when he has destroyed the net zero religion, he said, drill, baby, drill. Let's bring up all that liquid gold and make cheaper, more abundant energy. He dismantled the gender ideology. He got rid of identity politics from all the federal government workplaces. And he said he's going to control his border. With one fell swoop, he has dismantled the ruling class ideology of wokeness. And we have a government here tripping in his shadow, slagging him off, saying, you can't do this, you can't do that, not realising that that's what ordinary people want their leaders to do.
And you know, the one thing as well from this week, and this will be the last thing, is somebody rang the show yesterday and said the problem that we can't do anything about, as a politician, I don't know, the reason we can't do anything about our borders and we can't be forceful and we can't be like Trump is because the blob, you know, the civil servants are unsackable, which to me is just, I can't even have this heinous thing to say to me. And what did Trump do? I'm going to do immigration. And then yesterday it transpired that a few hundred working in the government facilities to deal with immigration disagree with him. So he sacked them. Brilliant. Honestly, why the hell can't we have politicians with that vigour, with that conviction, who don't care if they lose their seat? They put themselves in front of the British public and they say, that's what I believe, come with me on the ride, and if you vote me out, I'm gone, but I'm doing it warts and all. That's it.
You know, that is so true, because even if we had a good government, which we don't, the blob is always going to be a problem. That Whitehall monstrosity, which just constantly holds things back and checks boxes and ticks boxes and says, no, you can't do that. Computer says no. That's the attitude of our civil service. Computer says no. They say it to everything. And especially if the Tories in power, especially if it's Boris Johnson saying, let's get Brexit done, they try to stall that for years and years because they are undemocratic as well as really bureaucratic. So we have to do something about the blob. We will never fix the problems in this country unless we clear out a huge amount of the civil service which is holding this country back.
So good to have you on. Thank you, Brendan. Have a great week. He's always with us on a Wednesday at 6. Brendan O'Neill, chief political writer of Spike. What do you make of what he said? 034 0344 499 1000. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. This is Drive Time at 6:25.
full-length runway in Britain was built in the 1940s. No progress in 80 years. A third runway could increase potential GDP by 0.43%. by 2050.
Could a new runway be built that abides with carbon targets, concerns around noise pollution and concerns around air pollution?
That a third runway at Heathrow would unlock further growth, boost investment, increase exports, and make the UK more open and more connected.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's drive time. Don't forget Kev is here with his political asylum from 7 o'clock. Keep your calls coming if you want to be on the show before that. 0344 499 1000. Free of the shackles of being a Tory MP. This man has turned into, I mean, brilliant. We love him. Sir John Redwood, welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
Well, good evening, Jeremy, and good evening, Talk TV. I'm in good form, though I'm not very impressed by the attempt to row back from the budget. She was full of gloom, taxed us to death, and now she wants to talk everything up. But I don't think we're going to be seeing diggers going into Heathrow this Parliament.
Well, I think it's
going to take a long time to get that train all the way to Cambridge.
I've got so much to talk to you about. Let's start with Rachel Thieves and watch John Redwood's face as I tell him that I now call her Richard III. Check the haircut and go online. You'll know what I mean. When Rachel Thieves and Sir Dreary Starmer came to power, they made, as I said to somebody just then, Brendan O'Neill from Spite, they talked this economy down, 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 down. Understandably, the Tories had lost the ear of the British people, and I've said it, I think a packet of tissues could have got elected. So nobody was listening to the Tories. They came and they didn't say anything, but they spent the first few weeks and months saying it's dreary, it's miserable. The facts are our economy was doing quite well in the G7 and in the world in general. As a result of that, it flatlined. Then we had this ridiculous budget that said to businesses, we're interested in growth, but we're going to tax you and screw you over, small, medium and even large businesses. We're going to bring in workers' rights that basically, you know, are so ludicrous that it's not going to create any form of success in business and finance. And they wondered why it didn't get any better. And then we fast forward to today, because this is relaunch 1085 in the short space of 8 months. They're invoking the spirit of the late, great Margaret Thatcher by apparently setting up another quango to look into how to destroy red tape. But she stands there and says, we're going to be the best in the world. We're going to build this infrastructure. We're going to have a Silicon Valley between Oxford and Cambridge. We're going to have a runway. And there's no sign of Ed Miliband, because that's against his net zero targets. And Khan's already come out, the horrible mayor of London, and said, I'm taking them on. This is going to destroy us with noise and air pollution. They are an unmitigated mess. As a government, in my humble opinion, it's all about reaction. There's no proaction and there's no plan. What do you think, Sir John Redwood?
Well, I quite agree. I mean, I advised Margaret Thatcher and knew her very well, and I can assure you, Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are no Margaret Thatcher. They are the opposite. They flip-flop, they're gloomy, they're anti-growth, and they seem to be people with a big downer on anybody with enterprise and creativity and energy. Anybody who starts to make any money, tax them. Rich people come in from abroad, but let's tax them out of the country. We want to get rid of them because then our equality figures will look better. They are so anti-enterprise and growth. I mean, I listed on my website today about 15 ways in which they've taken action so far to make growth more difficult. And then they want us to believe this new dreamland. I mean, I would love to live in a world where we have reservoirs extra and plenty of water, and in a world where we had plenty of cheap energy and where we had proper communications between our main cities. And I like the idea of the golden triangle of Cambridge, Oxford and London, though I also think we need some golden triangles in the North and Midlands as well.
Quite right,
they seem to have rather forgotten those. But the truth is they're not going to deliver them, because with sky-high individual taxes, with a strong spirit against small business and growing businesses and against farming to grow our own food, and with very high corporate taxes compared with America and Ireland, we're not in the game.
Honestly, I'm so with you, and I know we talked last week about this angle, but I'll do it again. I had a caller on yesterday. You might have heard me say to Brendan, who said the problem is, Jez, what was a Tory. What you don't understand is that the government is very different. You keep going on about Trump, and the fact of the matter is, we've got civil servants and they're unsackable, which to me that's the worst thing you could possibly say to me. It really is. Yeah. You look at Trump. He said, I'm going to declare a state of emergency on the southern border. He found out yesterday, apparently, or the day before, on day 9, that several hundred within the federal offices that deal with immigration were doing actively everything they could in the last week to act against his policy. So he fired them, Sir John Redwood, because he's the president and he wants his policies pushed through. I just don't believe that these people have any plan or any conviction. The woman that was supposed to lay out their plans, I mean, frankly, I could have told them they were going to be elected from 3 years ago. You'd have thought the plan would have been better. They sacked the woman who was supposed to set up the first 100 days on day 83, Sue Gray. Are we surprised? But I've been amazed at how completely and utterly awful they are, and I never thought I'd say that.
Well, I've been amazed too, because I want our country to be better governed, and I accept the Tories didn't get some crucial things right. They allowed far too much immigration, which caused all sorts of shortages and problems, and they allowed a big inflation. I think that was more Bank of England than the government, but the government has to take the hit. They're ultimately responsible. They could have moved in and done something about it. But this government so far has been disastrous, and they've lost control of the number of public sector employees and the costs of employing all these people in the public sector. Their first budget gave a lot of extra money to employing more people on higher salaries. Now, Trump not only done what you've rightly highlighted tonight, but something much bigger in terms of controlling total costs of his overmighty government. And that is, he said to all these people in public administration, you come back into the office 5 days a week, and here's an offer, he says, if you don't want to do that, I'll pay you off, because I'm quite happy for you to cancel your jobs, and I'll give you a bit of compensation, and we'll have a much slimmer government. Now, wouldn't it be a good idea to have that kind of offer in Britain, to see if people would rather not do 5 days a week in the office and say to the others, well, maybe it's time you do 5 days a week in the office, unless you've got a very good reason for working at home.
I couldn't agree more. There's a positivity about Trump, whether you like, and I've said it all week, and I will continue to say it. Don't agree with everything he's said or done. There are moments of inappropriateness, I get that. But I'll tell you what he did. He said, vote for me, this is what I believe in, and they voted, and he started it on day 1, and that, I think, is the glaring difference. Few other subjects, if you don't mind. I'm really interested on this. The Labour Party continue to astonish me on a daily basis, Sir John. They don't seem to listen to anybody. They're this will probably go under the radar. This will just never leave them. The Labour Party is considering forcing households that only watch Netflix to still pay the BBC licence fee. That, to me, is unimaginable, and will be...
It's a complete disgrace. Oh. And, I've sent them plans about how you could mutualise the BBC and how you could spin off non-UK BBC Global, and get it to raise some serious capital in the private markets and be a challenger to Netflix and Disney and the other American greats. But they have no idea how far ahead the United States of America is, how these big American corporations are churning out so much media that people want to watch. And there's absolutely no reason why people should pay a UK tax when they've chosen to spend their money freely on American product. What we've got to do is fight back. We've got to compete. And the BBC is standing in the way of doing that, because it has this gormless BBC International branch that is absolutely tiny and cannot get purchased despite having favoured access to all the BBC material.
Completely agree. The other big story of the day, and I'm a royalist, I should point this out, but I have to say, this shocked me. We did the story earlier in the week that HMS Agincourt, the attack submarine, that the Royal Navy, who were described as woke, were going to rename it HMS Achilles. Unbelievable. Because the proposal might upset the French. I mean, you won't agree with this. You're a nicer man than me. I would take a job upsetting the French every day. That's just my opinion. However, it's come out today that our King has got involved and has been heavily involved in convincing whoever in the Defence Office that would be a good idea. I put this to you, Sir John Redwood, and I'm a royalist, I say that. Is our King turning woke? Has he always been woke? What's going on?
I have no idea, and I don't know the rights and wrongs of that, and I don't want to criticise the King, but I do want to criticise the government, because they ultimately took this decision, and it is pathetic that they think this matters, and that they think we should choose a name like Achilles, and everybody associates Achilles with Achilles' heel. Well, I think this decision is their Achilles' heel. It looks so pathetic, and we've had HMS Agincourt as a name before. It's a glorious battle in our military past. It is a military asset. I see absolutely nothing wrong with having that. Other nations do the same thing with their own triumphs in arms.
We're going to have to change the name of London Waterloo. What are we going to do? That'll upset the French as well, won't it?
Well, you'd have thought so. But I mean, if you go to the Palace of Westminster and remember attending events where French presidents or other grandees from abroad appeared, they often had to appear in the Royal Gallery where there are great tapestries of our great victories of Trafalgar and Waterloo, but we don't think we have to take those down.
Oh, good man. Listen, it's
what
always...
What about the Bayeux Tapestry? We have to accept a huge long tapestry celebrating their invasion and enslavement of many English people in 1066, and they don't apologise for that.
Good man, Sir John. Final question for you. On the day, we both felt very strongly about Margaret Thatcher. I always will. On the day that Keir Starmer says he invoked the spirit of Margaret Thatcher to cut red tape, my question to you, that revolting human being removed her picture day one in number 10. Is that back up now because he's invoking her spirit? No,
of course not. He doesn't mean what he says and he flip-flops, but we know he's doing the opposite. And one simple challenge I put out to them is, why don't they simply cancel the bill to have a football regulator? We don't need all that extra regulation. Our Premier League is one of the glories of the world. It attracts an enormous amount of talent and capital. It's a British success story. For goodness sake, don't let the government wreck it. And above all, don't get us into the position where the taxpayer then has to start subsidising it.
We love you, Sir John Redwood. I'm still working on that Christmas panto offer. Thank you for being on. He's a man. Sir John Redwood, former Tory cabinet minister, and always great to have him on the show. Thank you so much indeed. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. 22 minutes to 7 o'clock. Drive time till 7.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Housewives' Choice back tomorrow afternoon from 1. We line up with Kev O'Sullivan on the Political Asylum from 7. Petrie from, of course, 10 o'clock tonight. And Mike Graham back with Morning Glory from 6 o'clock in the morning. 0344 499 1000. Good evening to Natasha, who says, Jez, the King has been woke for ages. I believe he wore a black poppy one year for Remembrance Day. I don't know. And he's in favour of net zero. Always supported the monarchy. Not so sure now. Nick's in Southampton. King Charles likes his history. I trust he remembers what happened to Charles I. Not suggesting anything interesting. Terence, in light of King Charles's involvement in the renaming of HMS Agincourt, perhaps Buckingham Palace should be relocated to Woking. Sam Ellard is a sports god. And he's a genius. He knows everything and so much detail. I would love to see him commentating with Chris Kamara. They would be brilliant entertainment, brains and humour. That's from Sam's mum. Hello to Dan from Kent. Dan says, the only thing growing in this socialist-obsessed government is the nicknames for two-tier, never here, free gear Kia, Harmer to the farmer, Starmer and his Darth Vader look-alike sidekick. You try saying that. Rachel Thieves from Accounts. Fantastic. Gemma Atkinson. Is it she? I no longer recognise a socialist or a Tory. I am still homeless politically, but am greatly helped to understand this mess by the likes of Benedict Spence and Brendan O'Neill, says Gemma, sending love. As we know, the Royal Navy has been described as woke. We're delighted to welcome Rear Admiral Chris Parry, former NATO and Royal Navy commander. Not much time, Chris, but a very good evening to you.
Hello, Jeremy.
So this story didn't sound very inspired, did it? Hello, Jeremy. The Royal Navy have been accused...
Hello, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm very happy, Chris. Well done. Jolly good. Sell it. Listen, the Navy. I mean, honestly, this story came out this week. Attack submarine, brand new. Good to hear. We're going to call it HMS Agincourt. Oh, no, we can't, said the Ministry of Defence. We can't do that. It'll upset the French. We're going to have to call it Achilles, right? Achilles, not quite sure. Heel, all that, you know, Greek mythology, Achilles, killed by Paris. Anyway, you don't want to know that. It turns out the King was heavily involved in a move dubbed pathetic and wokey nonsense to do this. Thoughts from a Rear Admiral? Come on.
Okay, I'm a monarchist. I wouldn't say I was a royalist. But I think the King's been badly advised here. And I also think the source of this is pretty dodgy. I think it's just one person who's reported a conversation with His Majesty. And I think that the government are using this as a smokescreen. There's no doubt in my mind this has come from the current regime. King's been put up to it. He has to authorise these things. Achilles isn't a bad name. One of my relatives commanded Achilles at the Battle of the River Plate. So I'm not too unhappy.
It's not great, though, is it, Achilles? I mean, you think of Achilles Hill. The interesting thing about Agincourt was it's the sixth, or was to be, the sixth Navy vessel to be named after the outnumbered English's 14th, 15th victory. But Sir John Redwood say, if you're talking about offending the French, he said they used to come and sit amongst the tapestries in the House of Commons depicting battles as the Bayeux Tapestry. Are we getting to a point in this country where it is so... God, people are so soft that they're worried when there's all these problems, and this seems to be important to
Jeremy, it's the prime role of the Royal Navy to upset the French. I joined the Navy on that basis. So I'm not. Also, let's not forget that Henry V is Charles's predecessor. What I'm really worried about, though, is Charles I was married to a French woman, and Charles II was in hock to the French. So it seems to be a bit of a tradition.
I agree.
Look, let's be clear. I don't think the King probably gave it a moment's thought. He was badly briefed. He's been put up to it. And this is entirely our woke government that has done this.
You can't call the government woke. What you far right extremist, you, Chris Parry. Disgraceful language.
I'll call it ineffective then. If you don't
I don't think
it.
You're wrong. Listen, mate, always good to have you on. Thank you so much. Love to the family. We'll see you very soon. Rear Admiral Chris Parry, former NATO and Royal Navy commander, 6:45. We will have time for your calls if you want to get them on. 0344 499 1000. And the big news is Ryan's smiling. Back in 3.
when we win the next general election...
When you say?
Not just... Yeah, well, look, if you look at where we're headed in the polls, Julia, we are... we've got an enormous amount to do, clearly. We have an enormous amount to do. But we can see the trend and direction in this country is that British people are waking up. They're waking up and appreciating the optimistic message that Nigel and our MPs are offering them. And that's why we've gone from 14% support in the general election just 7 months ago to polling average of the polls at 25%. So, yes, we have an enormous amount to do. We don't take anything for granted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
We're back, 11 minutes to 7 o'clock. You have no idea what happens in a break. Look, I can see all my wires are all over the place. Jodie should have come and sorted me out. I do apologise. Most messy. Listen, calls. Let's get some on. Evening, Jez. You have so many interesting guests, but my one complaint is that they're never on for long enough. Love you. What do you mean they're not on long enough? We have to try and get through everything. It's very, very stressful, Christine, but I do apologise. Ryan, keep the guests on longer, you numbskull, you. Drive time tomorrow with Peter Carbour, by the way. I don't know if you've read, but he's been ill, but he's back. He's fighting fit, and he will be here inspiring a nation tomorrow with Drive. Let's go to the phone lines. We'll go to Worthing. Peter, a very good evening. You're on Talk Drive. How are you?
Jeremy, it's great to be on your show. I can't tell you what a thrill it is. I've got a song I'd like to do for you.
A what?
That's all right. A song.
Right, has anybody heard this? Is this going to get me fired?
Don't you worry. No, they've vetted it. I've been vetted by your girl. So...
Sorry, that doesn't sound right. Jodie is not my girl. I mean...
Oh, well. Well, I
wish.
Anyway, we're good to go.
Go on, then, go.
OK, I've got someone who wants to count it in, if that's all right.
Yes.
3, 2, 1... Thank you. Now the Westminster scene is frightful, and the policies are spiteful. But Starmer doesn't want to know. Let him go, let him go, let him go. He shows no sign of stopping, though the pensioners are dropping. The economy's way down low. Let him go, let him go, let him go. With the family budget tight, there are not enough kids being born. But we finally seen the light. So next time we're voting reform, with rain or reason lammy, we've got a triple whammy of amateurs running the show. Let them go, for pity's sake, let them go.
Yay! What is absolutely astonishingly bad.
Aye, mugs and suckers.
How old are you?
Do you really want to know?
Yeah.
I don't do Earth years. My doctor says I'm living the life of a 35-year-old.
I'm very grateful for you phoning. I completely agree. I love that. Get off the phone. Good man, Peter. Whether your dinner's ready. That was fantastic. Let's go to Essex. Rose, hello.
Hello.
Right, Rose, come on. Sound a little bit happier.
No, I'm fine. I'm watching Jeremy Kyle and I'm thinking about my question.
Right, have you got me on the television while you're speaking to me?
No, I've got Jeremy Kyle on. I
am Jeremy Kyle.
Well, I can't see you. I can't hear you. Well, you're talking to somebody else. You're talking to Peter.
I'm talking to... yeah, but you see, there's a delay. Turn the radio or television off because I can hear it.
Right, OK.
Turn it off before you come back to the phone. Oh, God.
It's off. Sorry.
Is your dinner ready yet?
No, I'm on a diet.
Oh, are you? Oh, this is getting more bizarre by the minute. Live radio, my friends. Right, Rose, what you got for me?
Right, curiosity, really.
Yes.
But I would like an answer.
Yeah?
If the King, which he has, woke the NHS, why can't he dissolve Parliament?
Well, he wouldn't want to if he's woke. Well, no, listen, I've had this argument, and not even an argument, I've made the point with several people. He's a constitutional monarchist, which means that he can't get involved. But before you jump down my throat, is getting involved with the Royal Navy proving that he's more than that now? I'm a royalist, but it worries me. But he can't dissolve Parliament. That's not how we do it here.
Actually, I've done a bit of researching.
Oh.
And yes, the royal family cannot get involved with politics.
Right.
But it hasn't happened for over a century. They can get involved and dissolve Parliament and call an AGM.
Call an AGM?
A general,
a general meeting? What?
It hasn't been done in over a century.
Oh, right. Maybe we can. All right, Rose, thank you. I mean, I don't know. Is your dinner ready?
No.
So just so you know, because we love having you on, if you've got there's a thing called delay, so we're a little bit, what you're hearing is behind what I'm doing. There's a reason for that, in case I say the wrong words, which I relatively often do. So what happens is, you were still listening to Peter and I was on to you and I could hear the feedback. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
I love you. Thanks for being on. Rose in Essex. We're learning a lot in the... Peter's dinner's ready. Rose is in delay. Let's go to Cheshire and Les. Tell me this is going to be simple. Les, how are you?
I'm still laughing at that song, that bullshit. Anyway, right, OK, I sent a couple of texts in relation to Hercules, right? Everybody got the history wrong on that. But anyway, I sent a few texts in, so if you get them texts, read them.
No.
Now, the thing I wanted to talk about is about this government. They will definitely get in the next Parliament if there's a next general election.
No, they won't.
I'll tell you for why. If immigration keeps extending more and more and more, the Christian society in this country will diminish and it become a Muslim state. And that's why people are leaving. They're leaving. People with money are leaving.
I read a stat the other day, and Ryan, I don't know if I'm right, about the millionaires leaving this country. I don't know whether it was every 45 minutes or every 4 or 5 minutes. But if we look at, I don't want to talk about what the state will become. Let's talk about what happened today. Because this government talks about growth. This government talks about encouraging, quite rightly, companies to come to this country. Let's leave migration on the side for 1 minute. How on earth would businesses look favourably at coming to the United Kingdom, investing their money, when workers' rights are going through... I mean, some of the things that Labour are bringing in with workers is ridiculous. Taxes have been raised on small, medium and big businesses, so nobody wants to invest. There's no structure to any of it. I think that we are... Without trying to over-egg it, Les, I think we are in the hands of a government, and I said it at the beginning, and I will say it at the end. I think that we're in the hands of a government that do not have a plan, that have an ideology, and that are trying to please all the people all the time in their stupid minds. And they're going to end up, I mean, upsetting everybody. And the reason I think that they can't possibly get back, and I'm being completely serious, is because they, whether it's pensioners, whether it's farmers, whether it's veterans, whether it's students, they are going to hack off so many people that the only option they will have is to lose. Don't see it any other way. How can you not agree with that?
Well, in part of it, I agree. However, there are certain people that are leaving this country, and I treat them as traitors. Because at the end of the day, to leave this country, British people are leaving this country having invested into businesses.
I've got the figures through. The wealth exodus, 1 millionaire left Britain every 45 minutes. In the year Labour came to power, the UK lost 10,800 millionaires to overseas countries last year, more than double the number in 2023. The wealth exodus equates to 30 millionaires leaving a day, approximately 1 in every 3/4 of an hour. Thank you very much indeed for your call. Les is in Cheshire. Hello to Christina, or Carolina, I never get it right, in Bath. She says, Jez, Pete nailed it. It made us laugh. Great show. Thank you very much indeed. They say that a millionaire leaves this country every 45 minutes. Well, a millionaire's just walked into this studio 3 minutes before his show starts.
Who is that millionaire who keeps leaving the country every 45 minutes? I mean, he must be very
I'm not going away. I'm not leaving the country.
Yeah, you're a millionaire. I'm not. I just got my tax bill.
Did you? Did you pay it?
I'm struggling to. I said on Clash of the Titans today that I'm going to have to sell my wife and my dog. And
Would you get more for that? Somebody told me
my Graham said you won't get much for that.
Did he not actually say you get more for your dog? Let me tell you, Mrs. O, he actually said, I reckon I get more for my dog than I will for the wife.
I'm in a world of trouble.
Mate, you are literally
I don't mean it, Henry, if you're watching.
He does, honestly, Henrietta. I want to stir that out of this. Right. What you got, pal?
Well, we're going to be talking about Rachel Reeves and her bizarre plans for growth. You know, growth. She talks about a Silicon Valley, Europe's biggest Silicon Valley, which involves building a short railway line and improving a road. How does that create Silicon Valley?
No. Between Oxford and Cambridge.
The fourth runway at Heathrow, you can forget about that, won't happen for 10 years. And by the way, later on in the show, Anne Widdecombe's coming on to discuss the BBC and this bizarre plan that I think people will be very annoyed about, that if you stop paying your licence, your TV licence, and you just watch the streaming services, the new bid to bail out the BBC is you'll have to pay for Netflix on your TV licence as well as paying for Netflix.
It's absolutely outrageous. Listen, you were a